Recognition. We need a motion for Order 2020, number 44, the proclamation for the Lisbon High School cheering team.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Can our guests actually join us?
Yes. All those in favor, and I'll call them forward and we'll read it. 7-0.
Please.
Welcome. The proclamation reads as follows: whereas the Lisbon High School cheering team have made the community proud as they finished first at the Mountain Valley Conference Championship, and whereas the Lisbon High School cheering team went on to finish second in the Southern Maine Class C Regional Championship, and whereas the Lisbon High School cheering team then took second place at the Class C State Championship, scoring 77.1 points over the winning team with 80.1 points. And whereas the Lisbon High School cheering team has made Lisbon very proud of their performances at the competitions. And now, therefore, we, the Town Council of Lisbon, wish to congratulate and thank the Lisbon High School cheering team for their fine representation of the town of Lisbon at the Mountain Valley Conference Championship, the Southern Maine Class C Regional Championship, and the Class C State Championship competition on February 8th, 2020. Thank you.
Good job, ladies.
We're good. Thank you.
All done.
Till next year.
Till next
Yeah,
year.
that's right. Till they come back next year.
Good job, sir.
Oh, it's the one I'm the least comfortable with. Thank you. Next, anybody else got any good news or recognition?
Yes, I do.
Please.
SUG Unified Team won today. They had a good turnout. We played against Maranacook, and it was a lot of goodwill and sportsmanship. This is the second game. We have 2 games next week, a home game on the 17th, and then an away game at the end of the week. I just want to thank the community for coming out today and showing the love and support, and look forward to seeing you next Tuesday.
Is middle school going as well as the high school with pushing it out being the first year?
Yeah, so this is the first year out, and it's so far so good for us. But
Right on. Yep. Right on. Anybody else? Any other good news and recognition? Seeing none. Next item, Twyla?
Is the public hearings, a medical marijuana establishment license for BBB Pharmaceutical Alternatives.
I'll open the public hearing. Anybody wishing to speak on behalf of this item, please step forward and state your name. Seeing no movement, I will close the public hearing. Next item.
Is audience participation and response for agenda items.
Same. If anybody would like to speak on anything on behalf of what's on the agenda, please step forward and state your name. Again, no movement in the room. We'll move on. Next item.
Is the consent agenda. Any counselor wishing to have any item removed may do so now. Seeing none. Order 2020-45 to approve the municipal accounts payable and payroll warrants. Number 2202020, $14,558.44. Number 200227 for $133,275.65. Number 2002W2, $14,747.09. 2262020, $105,194.34. Number 332020 for $191,706.81. Number 0304-2020 for $53,785.36. Number 2003W1 for $15,309.25. Number 200312 for $127,171.83. The school accounts payable and payroll warrants. Number 1067 for $6,752.82. Number 1068 for $66.24. Number 1069 for $304,704.64. Number 1070 for $13,487.37. Number 1071 for $6,925.78. Number 1072 for $66.24. Number 2015 for $103,947.33. Number 39 for $1,822.18. And number 1073 for $330,762.11. Along with the minutes for February 18th, 2020, and the medical marijuana establishment license for BBB Pharmaceutical Alternatives, and to ratify the March 3, 2020 presidential preference primary election results.
I'll make that motion.
Need a second.
I'll second.
Go ahead.
She beat him. All in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
That was quite an impressive feat, Twyla. Thank you.
Yes.
Oh, you're welcome.
There was a lot of air that was needed there. It was good stuff. I was like, dang.
I wanted to also point out that 35% of our town come out to vote for the March 3rd presidential preference primary as compared to the last 2018 when we had only 26%. So
That's nice.
It's a big increase.
Great. Thank you for pointing that out. It's awesome. Nice job. And hopefully the community will rally in November, too.
Next item, 12.
Under council orders, resolutions, and ordinances, Order 2020, number 46, the school budget presentation.
Good evening. I've given you or provided you with a copy of a couple of documents tonight. I have a summary of my actual presentation as I've done in years past. And more importantly, the two forms that you will be looking at over the next couple of months as we progress through this process. One is the subsidy comparison report, which would be your third page. And on the back of that is this proposed cost centers. And so you'll see a lot of the, when you see the increases and stuff that I'm talking about this evening, they'll jump out more within the budget by articles. And I'll go over those and obviously answer any questions that you have. The preliminary budget that we're presenting to you tonight.
Real quick.
Yeah, sorry.
What was the difference between the one that was on the desk when we got up here versus
84,000.
84,000?
Should be rough
Just-
for
okay.
84,000. Yep.
So
And
note
that
the
was-
one,
that
the
was
one
a-
that was just handed to us.
Yeah, that was money that was added. The school committee preliminary adopted their budget last night and added 84 additional thousand to the budget for us to start.
Perfect. Thank you.
There are still some remaining, for those that have been part of this budget process over the years, at this time of year, there's always variables that are going to come up. It's still, it's not as early. We do have some numbers that we haven't had in the past, so we did put together the budget based on that. But there are still some variables that I'll go over as I finish this up that could impact the budget in a big way, either positively or negatively. Probably the most prominent one in any school budget are special education costs. And that's really one big piece that's driving our budget this year is the number or the amount of money that we have for out-of-district placed students. We have some very fragile students who are going to require out-of-district placement. We have, if you look at our actual budget numbers that we're working on now, we're in the hole close to 200,000, 180, 200,000 just for this year alone in out-of-district costs. And I know that some may ask, well, isn't that why you did a day treatment program and why you did an alternative program? Yes, but the issue is that we still have students that have either from this town or that have moved into the area that require services that even that program can't provide. And so even though we've attempted to, in some cases we've had students attempt to work down there or to attend school down there, we just don't have the resources available. So unfortunately, we have to provide them with public education, and it's costly. Any of those ones that are outside of what we can provide are generally, without going into specifics on students or whatever, it's in the hundreds of thousands of dollars almost per kids. So with that being said, you'll see the preliminary number tonight is different than what you've seen all along. But currently the budget has an increase to the total taxes of $666,239. One thing I want to point out is that there was an article in the paper that said that the school budget was going up at 7-point-something%. But if you look at our, and there was, I think the reporter may have talked to you because they didn't get the whole impact on property taxes from me. But they seem, I thought in the article there was a typo. the way it was. I don't know if you saw the article, but anyway, the actual impact, even with the increases that are since that article was written, the actual impact is 7.54% right now. 7.53, 7.54% on our budget. So again, I can't control what gets in the paper, and I'm just figuring that out. And I know that these are, for those that have been part of this process, usually when I present tonight, things can change, and we will have different numbers and have a lot of conversations between now and when you adopt our budget in May. So obviously, the goals and the focus for the school committee, as in years past, and more importantly this year, there's been a focus to our primary goal is to maintain all of our current student programming and services, which have been included in this. And there's also been a real effort, I think, on the school committee's part to address classroom sizes and also to address and increase district and building supports for both students and staff. One of those pieces, if you've seen any of my presentations, has been focused on trauma-related student social and emotional needs. We have students that are coming in that, and students, not just students, but teachers as well. Teachers are graduating from college. They don't teach classes on how to deal with kids that are dealing with trauma and stuff. And what that could be is a result of a lot of things. Mental health, that could be, environmental, that could be just about anything. And so we're really faced with a lot of challenges with students, and we're finding that not just our new staff, but even our professional staff who've been in the building for a long time, they are really asking for help on how to deal with kids and how that impacts behavior, because the term that you'll hear, well, if you're in the school system, you'll hear a lot about triggers. And so how a teacher or a person responds to a student's behavior can trigger and make their behaviors worse if you're not aware of what those triggers are. And so one of the things that the school committee is really looking at, one of the things that I presented them with is an overview of some supports district-wide to be able to help train teachers, but also to work with students and try to address their behaviors. And we've added some of the things through attrition and through shifting some job responsibilities in the system already. We added, for those that have been going to, or seeing our meetings, we added a response to intervention, an RTI, and a PBIS, positive behavior intervention specialist for the elementary school. So that person's primary goal is not just dealing with special education students, but dealing with all students' behaviors, helping. They're just another support system for staff and for administration to deal with some of the behaviors. Because what you'll hear teachers say is that even a good example is like classroom sizes. We have classes of 24, 25, 26 kids or so. And then we also have classes of 20, 22, 18. But in some cases, those classes, depending on what type of students are in there, those classes of 18 and 22 could really feel like 40. And it all comes down to having supports. We unfortunately haven't been able to fill a lot of our ed tech positions. I think we're still short, maybe 3 or 4 district-wide. It seems like every time we hire 1 or 2 people, leave. And we've actually negotiated benefits and stuff so that people can finally transfer in with experience, which we haven't had until this year. So people who have prior experience, when they come here, they can get up to 8 years of experience, and that hasn't been the case. So that was one of the reasons we've had a hard time filling positions, is because people can go anywhere else in the area and get up to, they probably can get all of their experience, but we didn't know what the impact was financially, so we were able to negotiate up to 8 years. So that's one of the biggest things you'll see. And
So just a quick question for
Yep.
you move forward, Rick. So the idea of to try to help support the teachers, is that actually training and additional staff? Or is it just?
It's there right now. We have money in there for student services. So instead of saying, and we don't know what it all will look like, because I think everybody's in discussions. What my recommendation is, what other people's recommendations are, could be different. I met with the curriculum team leaders tonight, shared my concerns about putting like a classroom teacher into a grade level that has a lot of kids for 1 year, then the next year that grade goes to middle school, and then what do you do with that teacher? You can't move them from 5th grade to 1st grade. A lot of people will say, why not? But it really is.
It's tricky, yeah.
Instructionally, and and what people have a niche, And it's like, I was a middle school person. I knew that because I was only 5'8". So if I go to the high school, I'm the smallest guy in there. But so anybody has a niche. And so as far as like adding positions, the way I've asked the school committee and Wayne will be presenting is that we have money in there for to increase student support services. So that could be whether it's social work guidance, the people, the specialists that could come in and train both students and teachers. We don't know how that looks, but they've asked me what it would cost. So I've given them a ballpark figure on what it would be for each position. But as far as like knowing exactly what that is, we haven't gotten that far, because I think even to this point we still
Trying to figure
are
that out.
agreeing to disagree on what the impact will be and stuff, and what the flexibility, because we talked about, instead of just classroom teachers possibly using Ed Tech 3s, putting those in the rooms with the larger numbers, because our enrollment will shift. And one thing I will say that the community and that you need to be aware of is that we have a good problem, and that is the fact that our enrollment continues to grow. It's been right at 1280, 1275, 1280, and it's starting to grow. One of the biggest reasons why we received additional state subsidy, as you know, they run the numbers from the prior years, and so our numbers are increasing, and what we're getting is every couple of years you get this one class that has 108, 106, 110, 112 kids, and then it's back down to 100. So we've been right there, and schools north of here and even some to the east, their numbers are dropping. So I would say it's a good problem to have, but it is a problem, and I think that the school committee's done a nice job, and the teachers have come in. I mean, you have more people here than we normally do, but over the last couple of months, we've had a lot of staff come in and just share that they're burning out, and it's really research and all the instruction and stuff that we get on the education side is really showing that teachers are suffering from dealing with the trauma themselves. Because, I mean, I hate to say it publicly, but if you saw some of the reports that I have to deal with, whether it's DHS or not, it'd make you sick.
Yeah, it's trying,
And so
I'm
these
sure.
teachers know all this stuff, and so they bring that home with them, and then they have to learn how to deal with that. And that's a big challenge. That is like the biggest thing in education right now, is how do we deal with that? Because there's no such thing as, a trauma related for students 300 level class in college. You either learn it by being involved in it, and every kid's different.
I'm sure every other municipality is probably seeing the same child, just right.
Right, absolutely, and that's the biggest thing. And we are fortunate enough. I've talked to the Department of Ed. I've talked to a nonprofit organization down east. I've talked to another organization over in Brunswick about how to get that training. And we're going to be in good shape. We're actually starting that work next Friday during our professional day. But the numbers are high right now, but it's really a result of us looking at what we really need and what we could use to move forward. Because I know Tracy will probably speak about the fact that what she hears from parents is we're not doing enough. There's so many of these kids. The behaviors are overwhelming, and we're hoping and we believe that by increasing the student services lines, we will be able to address those issues. And then next year when I report to you, you'll see the results. The RTI PBIS teacher that I've already mentioned has really only been working for 3 weeks. And I know when I'm at the elementary school, it's rare that I'm in a meeting with an administrator if I'm doing supervision or whatever. It's very rare that somebody doesn't knock on the door. There's always some type of crisis. That's a big school. And if any of you are in there, there's always, and so they've got another person that's working with these kids, and it's the difference between, do you just send a kid home, or do you work with the kid and try to teach them how to behave, and then give them positive awards? The elementary principal last night shared some of the positive office referrals, and I've been there when the kids get one, and they come down and they're all excited and stuff, because most of the times when you go to the office, historically it's been because it's something bad, whereas this is good. So there's a lot of great things going on in the schools. I want you to know that. I think that we've made a lot of progress. It's just time. I think the term that I've heard the most, and Tracy will probably say it too, is that the school committee's been in a position, and I shared this with CTL, is that they have, in our opinions, and I get it's all about the bottom dollar. I've worked here 18 years. I know when I look around the room what I'm dealing with. But I will say that the term, putting things together with bubble gum and duct tape only works for so long. One position that's in here is, and that was all part of restructuring, is a curriculum director. And the curriculum director, we haven't had a curriculum director since I became superintendent. When they closed the RSU, when they closed the union, they basically split it up and they took the superintendent position and they spread it. I think I'm in 3 different places right now. And so that was a way to, and so we've never had a curriculum director, even though even though I'm budgeted in that area. I'm probably stronger than I give myself credit because I can oversee and I can facilitate stuff. But honestly, when you have somebody who's an expert in education, you're either an instructional leader, instructional person, or you're management. And I tend to be heavier on the management side because I can deal with money, I can deal with politics, people, all those pieces, which most instructional people can't. They're more focused on instruction. And so you get somebody in there, and we've had a consultant over the last 2 years who is, we've always had consultants. We've had some consultants come in, but we've had one over the last 2 years that literally has been able to get more done in just a few days of work per month. And I know that one of the things when I'm talking to staff, that by adding these student services into the budget, it's going to take some stuff off their plate, because instead of them rewording and just, they'll have somebody that they can go to on a daily basis or meet with on a weekly basis or bi-monthly or whatever. They'll have somebody that they can talk curriculum with and then be able to manage that and make progress. So that should take some stuff off their plate, so they should be able to focus more on teaching instead of just worrying about lessons and things like that. They're still going to have to do that, but I think that, if you ask any of the teachers who have worked with this new consultant, that we really, that is one thing that, yeah, it looks great on paper. That is one thing that we've been missing for a long time. And so that's a piece that's been built into this, and it's been just the other pieces, all the student services and stuff. We just know that by looking at it district-wide, we'll be able to impact everyone, not just putting one person in one class for 1 year. We'll be able to bring in some supports and be able to address and work with everyone and students in each building for multiple years. So I can answer questions and go more into those details, but overall it's just the biggest piece again is those types of supports. The additional increases are associated with the curriculum, which I already talked about, is the support and curriculum. In nutrition, we did build in the cost of salaries and in benefits. Now, I know last year when we moved that into the 600 line, we pulled that out of our budget. We obviously haven't made it to the end of the year, but it was the nutrition program is reliant on or dependent on raising money. And so the 1 year we did it was the year that they put in the food shaman law, which is like you can't really go you can't do anything about people who owe money. And so you may have seen around Christmas time there was a local business who donated or did a thing for us and donated money. Well, we actually built in. Tracy and I were at a regional meeting with all of our legislators and representatives, and they basically told us, they go, there's nobody in Augusta that's going to vote to have a kid go hungry. So you might as well just build in a contingency fund and tell the local taxpayers that they're going to pay for it, because we're not voting for it. So we did build in that piece, but the other thing to realize is that no different than our budget, which every year it goes more. Last couple of years, or we've been saying it's around 450,000, but with this year it's around 475. And so that it doesn't matter what we do. When your total budget keeps going up, your percentage based on your salaries, benefits, and things that are all negotiated. And I think we've negotiated very good. We're not. There's places around us that are starting to make me nervous because they're giving out 6%, 7%, 8% raises and stuff. We've already negotiated our contracts. We didn't have any to do this year, but that's gonna impact us because it's something that they're gonna be compared to. But anyway, the budget itself, everything we're presenting, we will continue to look at our program, and we still have a lot of variables that are going to be that by the time we talk in May, I'll have answers to. So there'll be a different number, but this number is where we're starting at right now based on the information that we have, and then we'll work from there. But again, it's a work in progress, as you know, and some things fall into place and some things don't. And I'm hoping that when I meet with you in May, we have numbers that are they'll be different, obviously. I mean, I'm hoping we've had insurance budget for 9%. That's usually every percentage is around 20,000, 15 to 20,000 or so. We've had a couple of years where we've had 0%. I mean, my luck this year it'll be 9% or 10, who knows? But so it's little things like that do get to that number and make that change. So I wanted to something I haven't shared with the town council in a couple of years because there hasn't been a lot of change. But I did have all the different budget terms and language that I used to do when I first started doing this. So I did put those in here, and hopefully you'll look at the most important, for those of you that are new, the most important paper that everybody's going to look at over the next several months is the subsidy comparison report, because that tells you the one magic number, which is what's the impact on taxes. Now, as far as the mill rate and what the impact is, I haven't done that in a couple of years. I can go on what you did in the years past, but I don't know. I tend not to like to do that because if it changes, then somebody's doing the math and thinking what they're approving. So with that being said, that's really the one piece, because there's 50-something pages in our total budget, and I didn't bother printing those out. I know some of you were already talking about doing stuff electronically because the additional $84,000 would mean I'd have to print out another 50 pages 20 times. So anyway, this subsidy comparison report is what you go on, and these are all dated March 10th, which is obviously today. And so as we move forward, I always reference these forms, these documents, and say, this is what you need to look at, this is where we are right now. Another thing to remember is a number that's always been out there was the amount above EPS, which I'll talk a little bit about. All of the positions, or all the student support service money, we just basically put it into LCS. And so you'll see in regular instruction there's a big increase. So right now that is impacting the amount above EPS, when in fact, when it's all really factored into our ED 279, which is the form that we get from the state, some of the positions that we're looking at or some of the supports that we're looking at will not impact, they won't put us above EPS. So that number will change. So I do know that there's been people in the community that focus entirely on the amount above EPS. So for those people, it's just a matter of getting these numbers and stuff into our ED 279, and that will probably be next year before you see what that real impact is. So the total budget expenditures, if you look at the subsidy comparison report, you'll see that this includes the local funds, additional local funds, revenue, debt service, essential programs and services, EPS, which I've already referenced, and the state subsidy. The transition amount is no longer part of the equation. The total budget as of today, and that includes adult education, so our total overall budget is $18,105,502. The undesignated fund, that's the unassigned amount. That's at the end of the year, whatever we have left over, or revenues and stuff gets transferred into that. Once we have our audit, it's extended obviously till the end of this month. So once we have that amount, then we'll be able to determine how much we can transfer for different things. We do use undesignated amount to create to use capital reserve to pay for the performance contracts, the phase 1 and phase 2. So there's $43,209, and that's what the capital reserve fund, the GPC, those are the performance contracts. That's the amount that we use from our unassigned, undesignated unassigned account to pay for those services. Anticipated revenue, that includes revenue from the use of the capital reserve fund, which I already talked about, and then it also has the Gartley Street School revenue and the interest credit, and you'll see that right as it's on the subsidy comparison report at the top where it says anticipated revenue. The special purpose school is basically Gartley Street School, and we did increase that by $165,000. It could probably be increased a little bit more. Those are one of those variables. But one of the things I've stressed to the school committee is that if you build a budget on revenues, and let's say all of RSU4 pulls out their kids, then we're going to be in trouble, because they're bringing in a amount of revenue that we. So we want to, it's like, do you put it in unanticipated and use it to build budgets and do projects, or do you build it into a budget and hope that it's there? So that is a variable that we're looking at, because we do our own billing this year, or started doing our own billing, and so we're hoping that those numbers will be more solid, and then we'll be able to build a budget based on what the actuals are. The local-only debt service, this includes the local portion of LCS, the gym, and the track, and it's not included in the EPS formula, but it is something that has to be raised locally. The essential programs and services, this is the EPS that I've referenced. The funding model is originally designed to ensure that schools have the programs and services which are essential if all students are to have equitable opportunities to achieve the main learning results or state standards. That can be argued on either way, what that number is, and we've been down that road before, but that is something that's still calculated within the budget, and it's something, like I said, the money that's been added in the last month or so is money that at some point will be, once it's put into the ED 279, that will be redistributed. So I believe that there's, depending on what options we choose, there are certain options that will not count towards our EPS, so it won't show that you still have to raise it, but it's not going to show that it's over. So for those people that are focused on that number should change. The total additional local funds is, again, the amount that's above EPS. So based on that formula, currently it's $3,022,340. Those amounts, again, will change once we get these, once we get a budget approved and we add these positions into our ED 279. The state subsidy, this is the actual amount of funding that we receive from the state. We currently, next year, we'll be receiving $9,536,727, which is an increase of $480,078. A lot of that has to do with the new governor adding back in administrative costs, things like that, but also because of our enrollment. So there's the increase in our subsidy as a result of different factors, but those are the primary reasons. The required local contribution, this is the amount that you have to raise locally in order to receive the state subsidy. And then the total local funding, this is the amount of money that has to be raised locally through property taxes. As you can see, as I mentioned before, the total increase in our budget is $1,267,467 currently. With our increased subsidy of $480,078, the actual impact to the local taxes right now would be $666,329. And I just want to point out that we've already used $118,211, which is what we've used over the last couple of years. We've lowered that amount from the unassigned or undesignated amount. And then we have $43,209 from the capital reserve and an increase of $165,000 revenue from Gartley Street. And those are variables because those numbers can change as well depending on what we have left over in the budget. As far as variables go, anticipated actual resignations, we don't know. I mean, we've had resignations and stuff as late as August, right before school starts. Sometimes when you hire people, there's savings because they take different health plans or they're on a different part of the salary scale. Other times it can be the opposite. So that's a big variable, and we don't know where that is. But we tend to. We have been fortunate enough that we have a very competitive teacher contract, and we're able to hire people who have a lot of experience and stuff. So we were able to put, in our opinion, the best people into those positions. The capital reserve, I've already mentioned, that's something that once the audit's done, we'll be able to determine how much of that we can use. And we still, you may or may not be aware, but we have one of the 3 boilers at LCS is down, and the replacement cost for that is going to be close to $80,000. So we're hoping to be able to use capital reserve to do that so that we don't have to go to bond or try to, and we're fortunate that, I mean, knock on wood, we might be through the winter. We still have 2 over there that can handle this type, a lot colder, but they can handle this type of weather. So we didn't want to be at the mercy. If you remember when Gartley Street, when the boiler was shut down, we were at the mercy of the company and what they had in stock. And so we probably paid more than what we could have if we would have just scheduled it as regular maintenance over the summer. Restructuring is something that the administrative team and myself talk about a lot and look at. It all depends on if people depend on resignations, retirements, moving people around. So restructuring is something we do all the time. We currently still receive the service center penalty, although there's always rumors of legislation to eliminate that. But one thing you need to be aware of is that in July, as of July 1st, the school committee will be able to take a vote and will be able to apply to be part of the Western Maine Service Center. And so the following year, that could be, that penalty would be removed. And I know some schools our size are getting, I mean, I don't want to throw a number out there, but anywhere between 80 and 120,000. So that'd be additional money or money that we receive versus money we don't receive. But that's all going to be for the 21-22 budget. Unassigned amount, again, once we get the audit, we'll be able to determine what we can use in that. Garley Street School revenue, that can change. I mean, we could have a half a dozen kids come into the program from from other towns. Salaries, benefits, that alone is roughly, as I already said, close to $475,000 without doing anything. That's all contractual. And insurance is currently budgeted at 9%. And so we're hoping we should have those rates in April. So we should be able to have a better number by the time I present this again to the board, school committee, and then to the council. Special education enrollment can change. So students that we may be planning on sending out of district could move out. It happens, but we also have students that we're not anticipating that move in, which is like this year, and then we have to look closely at our budget, so that's a variable. And then unanticipated revenue could be anything, whether it's selling buses and stuff. I know we've got one more that we want to sell, but it's not gonna knock down the total budget at this point. But at least we'll keep it. We'll at least be able to sell it, and then somebody else will be able to use it, get some use out of it, versus us having it sit around. And I think we've done a good job of that. We do have some needs as far as vehicles go. We do, for those that have heard me present before, we do have quite a fleet of vans and vehicles that we transport our own students around. We save a lot of money by doing that. An example is I literally just received a bill from Oxford Hills for a couple homeless students, and in 3 days they charged us like $600. So we're able to do the run ourselves with our own vehicles. So we're basically saving $300 a day by doing the run ourselves. So it doesn't take long. As long as you have the drivers, it doesn't take long to pay for vehicles. It's just a matter of we need to get on a replacement. We did start with the transit bus vans versus the regular 12 seats or 10 seat vans or anything. So, but we do have other vehicles. I know we have our 1-ton work truck is something that we need to look at. We put a lot of money in repairs to that. Notable increases, decreases, as I've already mentioned, is under curriculum, the nutrition lines, special education, and then in LCS, the regular instruction, the majority of the student service support money has been put there. So if you look at, I've kind of described all the pieces of the subsidy comparison report, but if you look at the cost center report, which is on the last page, you'll see the big increases in, the biggest ones obviously are in regular instruction, which is where those services would be, and special education. Then our salaries and benefits are listed in all the other ones, and student staff support, there's money in there as well for those positions. So again, this is the budget that was preliminarily adopted by the school committee, and we're still working on it, and we'll have more information moving forward, but we still have a couple of months, and hopefully some things will fall into place. They tend to normally do, but that's pretty much what I have this evening.
The Tracy and I have had some different discussions about the nutrition budget before and stuff, and so I guess it sounds like you're building a little bit different into the budget as far as nutrition. I guess what does that benefit? I mean, is that actually benefiting the idea that you're looking at the overrides being paid out front? I guess
Well, it has to be covered at the end of the day.
Correct.
The bills have to be paid. So it's a contingency for that.
Okay.
Not to say that we're still not going to actively try to collect the back debt, because we are.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we normally, as long as they stay in the district, we will eventually, if they stay in the district, for whatever reason, when they get to high school, it's not as big an issue. It's usually a bigger issue in the lower grades, and I think our staff have done a nice job of still being able to keep it within. I know my nutrition director worries about, like, literally loses sleep over this, and I have to tell her just take a step. It is what it is. There's some people who like, we have people who qualify for, now it's only free lunch, but they won't fill out the form. And so they create this debt, and then all of a sudden last year they were signing these forms in April and May and getting free, they would get their free lunches and stuff for the rest of the year, but we were technically stuck with that debt. And I know she loses sleep, it drives her nuts, and I try to get her to just, it's always been, it was never really public, but we've always had a debt.
Absolutely.
And so building in the contingency allows us to, and the thing is moving it out, yeah, it looked great on paper, moving that nutrition out, but the fact is that's the other pressure piece, is that she has to generate through sales enough money to pay for like $600,000-$700,000 of her budget. So with things increasing, maybe the way the economy is now and stuff starting to drop in price, there's certain things, but as far as like plastic bags and food and stuff, there's a cost to that, and that's something that we've never really built in, because what's happened is when it was in our budget, we just covered it. So when it's all said and done, it's always operated in debt, but it was covered with the millions that we had. So now that it's on the outside, it becomes a real, like, it's, for her, it's like she in order for her to, because we can't spend any more money than what we budgeted. So we have $235,000 in there right now. So if she doesn't raise that money and we transfer the money in there, then we have to do like special. It's put a lot more pressure on her to be able to generate those revenues and stuff. But that is it. We built money in there because salaries and benefits alone are 20-something or 30,000. So we have money built in there for the debt, and then we look at, hopefully we'll collect it, and then that, if we collect it at the end of the year when they're seniors or whatever, then it goes into unassigned. So.
The fact of the matter is that a way for residents to assist in budgets is to fill out the forms. Even if you don't think you qualify, you may be surprised you may qualify. So when those forms come home at the beginning of the year, filling them out is extremely important because it doesn't put burden on the taxpayer, the nutrition director, to have to chase things, and that we're able to function because the children deserve to eat. So,
Absolutely.
It's a simple form to fill out, and just by doing that is something that we would need the public's help for. And we try to do all kinds of different things to get
A lot of
that
unique things,
increased. But, we just need the participation. Just fill out the darn form.
And another piece of that is that things have changed. This town has changed. The amount of, when I first came here, 18 years ago, the free and reduced rate was probably closer to 60%. It's under 50 now, and it keeps going down. So that's the households and stuff are changing. They've changed a lot in just the last several years, and if you look around, the housing market in this town is, in my opinion, is booming. I mean, we've had new staff that couldn't even find apartments because everybody was buying and flipping the houses. People are selling their houses in 24 hours around here, so and buying, So anyway, that's a piece that hurts us, because if you're not above 50%, then you're not eligible for. Like, if you see a lot of these programs, like if some of you see a program and you're like, well, why aren't you volunteering, or why aren't you applying to get like free food for your? You have to have like a really high free and reduced, and ours is going down. So.
That current.
Mr. Chair. Sorry.
You did it the right way.
The only comment I have is I understand that from past experience and listening to other councils that the council has the right to talk total money and not individual money, and not to cherry pick your budget and things like that. I think we learned that one the hard way several years ago. But
Which is part of this budget is repairing that.
yes, okay. The only thing I want to be absolutely clear about is, I know it's subject to voter approval as well, is that when you compare total local funding from last year to this coming year budget, it looks to me like a 9.02% increase. Am I correct in that assumption?
I don't. I was going by the total general fund articles on the.
No, I'm just.
Yeah,
when you talk local money, it's right there, and that's why I'm saying that's the real local money. Between 7387, 642, and 80.
It should be 7410 216. Divide 666, 329.
7410, 216, where's that? The yellow piece of paper?
Yeah, on third page.
This one. Total local funding?
That's the increase in taxes.
to
The
this?
local, on the last
That's it.
page,
From that to that. I don't have my reading glasses.
Well, anyway,
yeah,
that's the local impact, is what I'm saying.
Is 9%.
of 666, 660. Yeah, it should be 666, 329, 8054.
Okay,
It says 669, so that's an error.
But it's not
Right
going to
there.
make
Well,
a
that's-
difference.
That's not gonna
I'll
make a
do
huge difference.
right. So
that's
what,
no big deal, but
I'm trusting that the
Formula in the back.
formula or whatever, because these are the numbers that we have,
okay. What I'm saying, I just want to be clear about
and that could be
where it
the-
is for the local guy.
Correct. And the budget, as I said, the increase would be 666,329 locally. So if you take that and divide it by 7410216, that should give you 7.5.
Well, that was last year's.
Oh, it's 9 point something.
But this is this year's.
Oh, that's
This is this year.
That's
This is
just
last
changed
year, so you
to
got to
that.
divide that
Into that.
by that.
Well, we can, anyway.
We can figure. I mean, if it's
It's
9, I
it's
don't
9,
think it
but
is.
that-
But if the numbers you're doing, if it comes out to 9, then, but it's the number I'm looking at is what the total bottom, what the increase is locally.
Did you also
Me
have
too.
revenue?
Anyway,
It's on page 3.
Are you good, or do you need clarification?
no, that's fine. I can figure the
You got-
calculation, and that's what
You
it
got the
is.
Calculation, okay.
Chair.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So just a quick question about, obviously, we're going off a couple of different numbers here that still are to be determined. Speaking specifically of the ED 279, is there a contingency in place not knowing what that might be, or do we have a rough, I'm sure we have a conservative number that we're using right now.
We have our preliminary ED 279 right now.
Now, the reality is on that, it could fluctuate either way.
That's been adopted. Once they put that out there, they rarely change it,
Okay.
because what they'll do instead is, let's say that because I know that the state budget is built on a lot of revenue, so with everything that's going on, if those revenues don't come in, what will happen is, in years past, you may have heard me talk about curtailments. So the state will say that they didn't generate enough revenue, so they're going to do a curtailment, and then it will impact each. So you basically have to operate with the assumption you're not going to get a certain amount of money. So that's, as far as the ED 279, they rarely put that out there. Sometimes they've added money. I remember there were some stimulus funds, so they've added money, and we should have that ED 279 should be
Pretty rock solid.
pretty rock solid right now. The issue is it doesn't have all of the changes, the services that we currently have is not in there. So some of them are going to make the EPS go up, and some won't count. But it's still going to be, you still have to pay for it locally.
And what I was driving at, and I just want to make sure I understand a little bit better, is there a contingency plan, or is there a way to get our arms around what the shortfall might be in the event these numbers come in lower than we anticipate? And how, or is that just too tough to tell? I know it's a moving target.
You mean like as far as like our funding and stuff?
Yeah.
It's more, well, what we would have to do is, what we've done is we will build and I create like separate purchase orders and stuff. Like if I think there's going to be, let's say our main care seat is a perfect example, which is built into this. That actually is driving this too. But I'll build in a purchase order, and so if there's like $5 or $5,000 left over in a line, you kind of build that in. So you build a contingency that way. But as far as like knowing the numbers, they're pretty close. I mean, I think our ED 279 numbers are going to be pretty close to what we have. So there's no like additional funds or anything put in this to cover a perceived shortfall. These are based on what we believe are services and stuff that we need to provide to our students to help us move forward.
Based off budget experience in the past, we could peel this number back by the time we get to May then.
Oh yeah, I can assure you it'll be lower.
Okay.
I don't know how much, but it'll be lower. It won't. This is the first year that we've ever added.
Yep.
We've always, whatever numbers, build it based on my experience with what the needs are, and then so we did that number and presented it, and then as a result of just being aware of some of the things that we need to do within the schools, and some of you probably have heard, and so the school committee has asked me to, what does it cost to do this, this, and this, and so we feel that the services and stuff that we really need now are built into this. And so as far as like the number, it's going to go down because there's, like I said, there's a lot of variables, and once we have our audit, I mean, 1 year I think we rolled over $5,000. Usually it's $600-700, whatever we have left over in money, 3, 4, 5, and then with the revenue, main care, and all that, hopefully we have enough money so we'll be able to do things. But the boiler is going to impact that. But again, I'd rather do that than have to ask for 80-something thousand and go to I know it's below the number, but anyway, if we can work within our own budget, then I'd rather do that. But that will impact it. But we won't know the audit, and I'm not sure. We were told we asked for 2 extensions, so hopefully the town side. We're just waiting for everything to be done on your side, and then we'll be meeting with the auditors and going over that. But we have some preliminary numbers, but we also had we're doing some work with our local entitlement with the auditors and stuff, helping or trying to reduce that amount.
Thank you.
Anybody else? I have one question.
Sure.
The curriculum director,
Mhm.
the formulary that it's actually set, that basically the state sets, that position is above and beyond that, so that one would directly drop out to the local funding? Is that correct?
Anything administrative dependent on would generally raise are you talking about the above EPS?
Yep.
Most of that stuff would generally be above.
Right.
Yep.
Is there anything else of that for the listening dot in the corner, like the curriculum, that's actually in that is a conscious choice that the actual school committee supports this year?
Yeah,
We added an additional, what happened was we had a teacher go out on maternity leave, so we had 5 teachers in 1 grade, and then what the team decided to do, we started with a sub that wasn't working out, so they just took that class and divided it up within the 4 classrooms, and so what happened was that teacher was going to come back, but we'd already moved the kids twice, so instead of moving them a 3rd time,
right,
we kept them there, and then we took the money from that position, and that's where we put in the RTI PBIS.
Okay.
And so what happened is in our initial budget that's built in through just restructuring and stuff is the curriculum position and the classroom position that we use for RTI.
Okay. I misunderstood.
Those
I
are
thought
like,
that was already in place.
in my opinion, those are like those were things that the school committee wanted from the get-go. The other supports are all things that have happened over the last month and a half.
so outside of EPS could possibly be the staff student support services positions.
Right.
And just to speak more on, the curriculum, when we wound up cutting that, it was a conscious decision by the school department at the time, in hopes that we would have gotten it back within 5, within 10. We're now looking at longer.
Ever.
And in my opinion, we no longer can wait. We need a point person to be driving our own staff to where they need to be and taking off some of these responsibilities from teachers who are also dealing with behaviors and extra pieces of having to play social work with families and do those types of things. We need somebody that's going to be driving that, driving professional development from what he or she sees needs to be done on a plan. I mean, we talk about the 5-year capital plan, and those types of things need to start coming into focus again for our school districts, and the school committee is wholeheartedly wanting and needing to put those positions into place.
Perfect. It was for the listening dot in the corner in that regard, is the fact that where you guys stand to be able to educate what we're actually going to be coming out with for a final budget.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, 12.
Order 2020 number 47, the fiscal year 2020 Homeland Security Grant Program. Police Department?
Thank you guys for coming in.
Evening, Mark Hagan, Chief of Police. The Police Department has the opportunity to apply for the 2020 federal grant program through Homeland Security. The grant doesn't require any matching funds. With this grant, last year we received an award of roughly $6,800 that we used to purchase mobile and portable radios for our officers. Basically, our radios are at the end of what they call their useful lifespan, and we started having some problems last year with the radios dying. So what we would like to do again this year is apply for the grant and use the money to purchase 3 mobile radios. We're looking at roughly $6,400, so roughly the same amount as we put in for last year. So it's a non-matching fund, non-matching grant. We are just asking for permission to apply for, and if we receive the grant, purchase radios.
I'll entertain a motion for discussion.
Make
'Cause
that
I'm
motion.
sure somebody has a question.
Second.
Get the motion, I get the second.
Favor.
Go ahead, who's got the question?
It's a yearly grant. I think we've done really well with it in the past, so I think as long as we can keep getting it, it's not a bad thing, right? So
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, our big plan is to get all new radios, both for the cars and the officers, through the grant processes. There's several grants that come out a year, and right now our focus is to use all the grants that we can to purchase new radios. They're quite expensive. For a car radio, we're spending over $2,200 per radio, and our portable radios are roughly $6,500. So it's fairly expensive if we were to budget it. So right now, knock on wood, we're able to go through for communications through these federal grants.
Mr. Chair.
Anything else? Yes.
This is kind of a related topic, but not to the radios. The repeater that we replaced on Route 9, is that part of this? So the radios use that repeater, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great.
Yep.
So that's something that keeps in mind. Any new product we bring on, obviously, would be able to be compatible with that. No issues there, right?
Yeah, so far, everything's compatible. We have 3 different repeaters in different locations through town, and we did that, I believe, 2017, one of my initial year here, and knock on wood again, so far it's been great.
Perfect. Thank you.
I can't imagine what the downside would be.
No radios.
build it into a regular budget, and that's the downfall, right?
Yeah.
Any other questions of Chief? All in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next item, 12.
Order 2020 number 48, the fiscal year 2020 Homeland Security Grant Program for the Fire Department.
Nate LeClaire, Fire Chief. As far as the grant's concerned, same thing he just said. It's the Homeland Security Grant, 0 matching funds. And what I'm asking for this year from this grant is to purchase ballistic vests and helmets for the fire department. With the increased concerns nationwide on threats in public places, we need to be prepared. And not only are Saginaw County last year outfitted their entire public safety divisions throughout the county with these items to try to be prepared for this. And I've always been in contact with the county EMA director, and she's excited about this because the county is putting in for training funds in this area. So unlike last year where she wasn't very happy with my choice of item to apply for, this year she is. We're talking, and I'm still trying to build prices because this is something new to me. This is more of an area that I've been dealing with Ryan McGee on because this is more their expertise from the police department. But we're looking at probably around between $6,000 to $8,000 worth of equipment that we'll be putting in for this.
I'll make a motion for discussion.
I'd second that.
Okay.
Okay, great. So my questions: how many firefighters would the amount that you just mentioned? How many would that?
We're only talking probably about 6 to 8 sets. So it'll be 6 to 8 vests and helmets.
That would be covered under this. Well, the
Yep.
majority of it would be covered under this grant. Is that right?
Yep.
When you're looking at priorities, as far as when you say, okay, we get grant money, how do you prioritize what's there, your needs, or versus to say that these ballistic vests and helmets are top of the list.
Yeah. What, over the past year, there's been a lot of discussion amongst, as you know, the OWLS program through the school. And part of this has been discussions between myself and the police chief, myself and Ryan McGee, about being prepared and how we're going to respond to these incidences. And it's with the Homeland Security grant, there's only certain things we can apply for. It has to be certain categories to apply for. And this was an area that we are not prepared for on the fire department side. And that there is some training money that's going to be coming available through the county to get us trained. And we're talking very preliminary here, but I've already been in discussion with Brian, Lieutenant McGee, about joint organizational training between law enforcement and fire department on how we're going to respond with them. Because of the way that things are going these days, once law enforcement goes in and secures certain areas of a building, usually the other responders follow them in to remove victims. And that's not when the thing's done. The incident's still going on. It's just when they clear certain areas of a building where they'll be moving in to pull people out. And if we're going to be doing that, we need to be protected to be able to handle that situation.
Thank you.
It's kind of a, I see what you're trying to, when we're looking at what the Homeland Security grant's covering for threat assessments, actually how I think some of the wording they used on that one. And trying to look at where we are in preparedness in that area, it actually turned my total mind around what I was planning on doing with it last year at this time.
So I guess that, and thank you for clarifying, because I think that helps. And I'll be 100% honest. When I first read it, I was scratching my head.
Yep.
Now I understand, because it would be a very foolish and short-sighted question for me to ask, why do we really need this? But it only takes once, and then you realize the need is great. So that's not it. But I want to understand how we got there,
Yep.
and I think clarifying what the Homeland Security grant covers
Yep.
helps people who may be in that mindset that I just mentioned understand that it's not just this open basket of goods, to borrow Alan's line, where we can say, well, this is our need, so therefore we're going to take this money and apply it. This money doesn't apply to every one of our needs that we might have.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Can I just ask a clarification question?
Sure.
Is the fire department in a better position with radios compared to the police department? If we've heard for the last 2 years that them coming from that, and that isn't also an acceptable item?
Our radios are still in decent condition, and
Okay.
we've been budgeting
Okay.
to take care of radios as we go.
I needed to hear that publicly because I'm sure somebody else listening is asking that same question.
Yeah, and they're operating on a different brand radio, and not always, law enforcement and fire department don't always utilizing the same, I want to say, quality radio as well. So I can't really speak for what he's using for a radio, but ours are getting to the point. But we've been slowly starting to replace radios through budgeting process, so we don't have to do them all at once.
I got to follow up. So with that, and I'm just going to ask the question, devil's advocate, when we're doing this every year to replace radios, ballpark, I don't expect you to pull the line item right out of your mind. What would you say you're spending on average to replace radios yearly?
I can tell you that we're spending, I didn't buy any, I bought one radio this year for the new truck. So that radio was around $2,000.
Okay.
The portable radios, when you're talking about the charger, the battery, the antenna, the actual radio, and the lapel mic that goes with it, is just under $1,000 per radio.
Yes.
If I may, and again, I know there's a lot more logistics in this, but we have a lot more firefighters than 6. So, I mean, when you start talking about this type of gear, I mean, are we talking about the idea of trying to ramp up so it's a SOP for everybody to be fully geared every time they roll, or are we talking about a specific team that would actually be geared up to actually?
Right. I'm not going to be putting 40 people into the high school. It'll be set crews.
It would be a set
teams.
crew that would actually have this so it's not going to be a standard operating procedure for every time they roll in a call to actually get vest.
How many paramedics do we actually have that would actually be the ones that would be responding?
Well, I have myself and the deputy paramedics. I have 1, 2, 3 advanced providers, guys who can do IVs, things like that. And then I have probably about 8 or 9 EMTs on the department.
in this, may I? I mean,
Please.
I assume that, I mean, most of the time we're talking about school is during the day, so it'd probably be your per diem guys that are actually on during the day. I mean, I'm sure there's actually something you've worked out to make this all happen, because typically we don't have school settings in the evening, typically, but.
Right, but
Yeah.
we keep using it as an example.
Yeah.
But we're also thinking about, we have Union Press, the largest employer in town. There's always potential issues that happen there.
Yeah.
And then we got Moxie Day. And there's always potential issues when you have big gatherings like that.
Yeah. No, it's sad that, as I think Norm was trying to put out there, sad that we actually even have to consider the idea that we have to, not arm, but actually armor our firefighters to actually go out and do a, service community. But we do live in a day and age where you do got to think out of everything. So.
Yeah. And I do want to, the current EMA director I know she mentioned it to Chief Hagan, that she's really pushing to get away from everybody putting in for radios. So the police have their own little purse they pull from. For town of Lisbon, we have a certain area we can pull from, and the police has their own. So when you try to, a few years ago, I didn't apply, Jim McDonald didn't apply, so Lisa could try to put the generator through this grant. And Mark couldn't give that money out because he wasn't allowed to. That's strictly law enforcement. So
The EMA director, since she doesn't want us to push for radios, is she willing to pay for them? Is that what she's saying? I'm on board with the flak jackets all of a sudden, if that's the...
Yeah.
You're more direct than I was. I was actually saying it's one thing to have an opinion. It's another thing to have it be an allowable grant expenditure item to be requested for. In most of the conversation that we've had, I would summarize that if it were coming from the police department prior for this item, it would have been a very quicker discussion. Actually having to entertain, having this coming for our firefighters associated with that, I appreciate you actually going through the process of vetting it publicly. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Was there any other items considered to be purchased for this grant?
There was some thought on rope rescue equipment to help us do with slopes and ropes and things like that on the bankings of the river. But again, it's looking at when you do these grants, you kind of look at what's the hot topic and what they're going to give money for. And it looks like I'm hitting it this year with this direction because it's a key factor right now with the county in doing threat training and things like that. So that was the other avenue to go. But as I'm looking at this, I'm thinking that I think we're 25 years here. I think I've only seen one issue we've had over banking where we had to worry about dealing with ropes and things like that. So it's once in a 20-year situation when something that's becoming another growing concern that could happen to any community anywhere in the country, regardless of size.
I appreciate the second part of your response rather than the one that's because it's a hot topic that it's most likely to be accepted. That one irritates me. If you were saying we had 20 needs this year, the fact is I would lead with ropes all day. When you said it was just one and it's rarer, I appreciate that part of the answer much better.
I think something like that, and it's good for context, because I think that's easy to look at and say, well, the one time we didn't have ropes, we needed them. But it's a little bit different when it's, like you had mentioned, the threat assessment to the personnel who are responding to a need. And the more I thought about it after some of my colleagues here stepped up and started asking questions, if we're doing mutual aid as well, and which would be probably likely the case on a larger event of that nature, it wouldn't just be one unit responding, because we might be mutual aid if that another department, I'll use a neighboring community, if they're having one of those types of events, they're going to need us to respond, maybe not to that particular area, but at least to other areas, and who knows what that could bring as well. So.
Any other questions? You got one, I know.
Well, I just bring it up because I think I looked up the numbers. There was one firefighter that was killed last year via gunshot wound. And so we have a river. And so just opportunity cost. Like, we spend money on this, and I granted it's not a cost to the town by any stretch of the imagination, but once in 20 years versus is even more frequently than what we currently
We may
have.
have had one firefighter shot. I think the number actually might be higher than that, but we've had firefighters shot at. Even in the state in the last couple of years, there's been at least 3 that I know of that have been shot at. But it's those, I can't use those as examples because those are all house fires.
Right.
So you show up to a house fire, the guy doesn't want you there and starts shooting at you. We're not going to be wearing the vest for those. We'll be wearing our structural turnout gear.
I think I heard, Mr. Chair, I think I heard somewhere in there that it's important to have the good vibes from the EMA director. Is that a good assessment?
Yes.
Okay.
She's actually excited when I talked to her on the phone.
Any other questions of Chief?
No.
We have a motion on the floor, and we have a second. All in favor?
What about 7-0?
Opposed?
Oh.
I
I
did
miss
not
one?
see 7-0.
Yeah.
Thank you.
6-0.
6-1.
6-1.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
So unusual.
Maybe more.
Next item.
Order 2020-49, the Public Works truck purchase.
Good evening, everyone. Randy Sear, Public Works and Solid Waste Director. I sent out a memorandum on requesting to purchase a new truck. I'd like to take advantage of the incentives that are going on right now and actually the need of a truck. Just to go backwards a little bit, I sent you all some pictures of.
I didn't forward those on.
Did you
I didn't
forward
know
those?
you wanted those to go to them.
Okay, well.
It's a truck that can't even go on the road, so.
Right. So we're just down some vehicles. We have a 2004 Chevy or Chevy, I believe, that is a diesel and had head gasket issues. So I pulled the plug on repairing that one because the repair bill, just to get the head work done, Fern, I'll give it to you because you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And redeck the heads and clean them up and everything, put new injectors and everything. We're talking almost $4,000. That's not going to fly because that truck's a rust bucket. I sent Diane some pictures. We have the cab off because it's easier to access the motor. Needed all new injectors, which are all 8. By the time everything's said and done, we're going to be over $4,000 in just repairing the motor, and that truck's due to be replaced next year, and I doubt we'll even get our money back. So we're putting the cab back on it, rolling it out the door, and it's probably not going to get done. I just don't see the feasibility of, expending that kind of money on that truck. We're not going to be able to recoup. The second one is the 2007 Ford F-150 was due in my CIP to be replaced in 2021. Right now, there's with the factory incentives and the money that I have left over from the compacting trailer, which is $24,122, leaves me with a balance of $3,870. It's a great time to take advantage of that, seeing as though we're down vehicles anyway. And I'm currently using my truck just because every other truck's being used by the crew. So it'd be nice to purchase that truck, and then with the CIP, I'll be replacing the 2004 that's currently out of commission and won't be roadworthy.
Yes,
I'll make a motion for discussion,
I need a second.
Second.
if I may.
Yep.
So, Randy, just to get a better handle on this. So we're talking 2 different trucks. I mean, the 2007 Ford, that's actually F-150. That's strictly just that's a non-working truck. It's a non-plow. It's basically the department head. Right, checking on jobs and actually using it for instead of using your own truck, this is what the truck would be used for.
Right.
The 2004 Chevy with the diesel, that was actually a plowed truck, I would assume.
Well, it was a plow truck, but it's had frame damage 3 times, so we're not putting a plow back on it because the front end's been welded 3 times.
Yep.
So
Is that a dump body or was that the,
it's a dump body, but that rotted out, so now it's just welded straight to the frame.
so it's basically just something that's been around? And if I remember, that truck might have even been an auction truck before, wasn't it? Or was that something?
I'm not sure. That was before me, so I have no idea.
Yep. The, I mean, I have no problem. I mean, I know the 2007 is probably, it's actually definitely served its purpose over the years for sure. And the, any idea of, I mean, that actually has served, 13 years? I
Right.
mean, is that, what do you usually put in for a capital plan for the idea of?
The CIP I had what 30 or 40,000 for a new pickup truck, and then I had 50,000 to replace that 204, which I can still do with a cab and chassis.
Yep.
I've been pricing them with O'Connor's, and that's for a 23,000 GVW quad cab. So 4 employees can go instead of 4 trucks for 4 different people. Now I've got them so they're riding 2 per truck, which is nice. But now when that truck rolls out, it can have 4 people in it, which is going to be for next year's purchase. But
That'd be heavier truck also? That'd be
it's-
3/4 ton at least, or a 1 ton?
it's a 2.5 ton.
2.5 tons, big truck then.
Right. It's not a dump truck
Yeah.
per se like we have, but it's a scaled down version. It's a 6500 model of the GMC, and it's got the Duramax with the Allison, and it's got the PTO, and it's cheaper for us to do a body here, a rack body. I want to put a rack body with removable sides in a dump body. $5,000 if we do it. It's $10,000 if we buy it.
Yeah, with that base truck, it's a little bit over that 30,000 budget that you're working with, the 30.
Right. Yeah. So we're talking 2 different trucks, but
Yeah.
this truck to replace the F-150 is just a half-ton 4-wheel drive
Truck.
It's got Bluetooth, and that's my biggest thing because once this new law kicked in, the F-150 doesn't have Bluetooth, so it was always pulling over or,
That'd be legal. You don't want
trying to get in a spot so you can take a call because I get calls all day long. So,
Yep.
so that's why I got into my pickup because it's got Bluetooth, and so I've been using that since I gave back the newer truck because that's a plow truck that the town needs. So that's why I've been using my truck.
So I mean, going back to that Ford, I guess that's where I was originally starting.
Yeah.
Do we think that's going to be a 10-year truck also? I mean, is that,
It'll be more than that.
so it's a long-term.
It'll be a long-term truck.
Questions?
Sure. So I heard you say that ultimately the truck this was built in for the CIP for next year.
That's correct.
And so while I understand that there's an opportunity because of some of the savings associated with that, and I understand that you're using your own personal truck, which I don't think is a great idea, but I understand why, as you
Right.
just explained why you are. The only place that I land on this is that I personally have to look at this across the board when, in the past, when there have been asks outside of the budget cycle, unless it was budgeted for this year, I'm a hard no, just because we say come to this, you come to the budget, correct, knowing what you need, and I get the fact that this is your first year running in, so that's the hardest part for me on this. It's not that I don't agree with the savings or support the idea of with the change in law, you have to do some things because you're fielding calls all day, and I know we've been creative in trying to save money at in the Public Works Department, so it's just. That's the only thing that makes it tough for me right now to look at this and say it's something I can get on board with. It's not that I don't think it's needed. It's just that bottom line. Have we done it for others? We've had other folks stand up here in the same role that you're in right now, ask for stuff, and we said, sorry, no, it's not in that particular frame. I'm not trying to be closed-minded when I talk about that.
And the only reason why, if I can interrupt,
Please go ahead.
and the only reason why I'm taking advantage of it at this point, and the only reason why it looks good right now, is because you guys allotted me $100,000 to spend on a trailer, which shopping around, I found a vendor that could do it for $75,000 and change, which saves $24,000. So there's $24,000 there. That's the reason why I want to use it, because that's going to save me on my CIP next year. So instead of me asking for $80,000, I'm only going to be asking for $50,000.
That's
So-
the O'Connor truck you were talking about, right?
That's correct.
And is that the one that's not, obviously, the one that's in the bid spec is for something completely different? We're talking two different trucks here,
There's
right?
two different trucks. I had a CIP next year for two different trucks, this one and the one that's out of commission right now.
And if we ask in advance, and I just want to make sure I understand this right, and stop me if I'm wrong, by ordering a truck in advance, we say it's going to go out to bid process, but the reality is if you had some prelim work done based on what you're eyeballing with O'Connor and their model, if you have the ability to then put that bid in, or get that bid approved and they come in as a low bidder, then you can order the truck out, and you're not taking something out of stock and you're ordering it out, so therefore you even get better pricing. Is that right?
What happens is, and they've explained it to me on why you can save money on ordering one as opposed to one that's sitting on the lot that's going to be exactly like the one you're getting. For one, they don't pay advertisement fee, and two, they don't pay the 3%. When they get the trucks delivered to them, they pay 3% on every truck.
Right.
On whatever their, the sticker is on that truck. And they have to pay an advertisement fee. So as you read down it, that's why it saves me an additional $1,200 to order it. Right. And to order this truck, I have to put the order in before March 25th to get all those savings in. It's $9,700 cash back because we're a municipality. And then there was, another few thousand, I think it was another $4,000 on top of that. If you take and do the math from what it costs on option 3 for Emerson Chevrolet and all the all the incentives right now, I think it added up to almost $14,000, that savings.
So that being said, the only ask truly then over budget is whatever, $3,000, $3,800?
Yeah, it was $3,870, which from my equipment rental fund, I still got plenty of money in there, so it's, come the end of the year, I'm not going to be overspending any budget by any means.
Right.
And that's why I'm saying now's the time to do it. Just like last year when I bought the jacks, you guys didn't have a public works director for so long, and you were down few employees. The 36 grand came from there, and that was, again, just like this, you're saying it wasn't budgeted for,
Right.
but it was the time to buy because the money was there.
Right.
So instead of asking the taxpayers for more money and putting more money in my budget, which is just a numbers game, now's the time because the money was already allotted, as opposed to me asking more money on next year's budget.
And I can appreciate that because it makes it easier for us to understand, and it was painted pretty clearly in there. I understood where the initial 24K was coming from out of that trailer.
Right.
I just wanted to understand where that extra 3870 was coming from.
Yeah,
So
it's
now-
money that I already have that I didn't use in my equipment rental.
Perfect. That's
Mr.
clarity
Chair.
was. I want to understand that. Thank you, Randy.
Yeah.
Here than here.
The $100,000, refresh me, the source of that money.
Fund balance.
Well,
And budget.
half of it was raised through taxation, the other 50,000 came through fund balance.
So
Unassigned.
we're dealing
Either
essentially,
way, whatever's left over would
Right.
close to fund balance and be
Right.
available for next year.
Right.
right. So we're dealing with money that we currently have. We're not dealing with future money at all here, so.
Correct.
Okay.
Cassie?
What year is this truck going to be?
2020, and it has all the factory warranties along with it.
Okay, and what is so I was just running the math. You're saying that in the amount of $27,992, that's what the going price is for that? Or is that after
No.
the $9,700, the $4,000 trade-in?
The going price of the truck was like $44,000.
So a $44,000 truck for technically.
30 grand. 27,992.
And it's all money that we have already designated, so it's not any, to Don's point, it's not on any future money.
It's not borrowing money from somewhere, so we don't have it.
We're not robbing Peter to pay Paul. There we go.
Right.
Anybody else want to take a stab out of this before I actually? I'm a
got
solid no.
Yep.
And I can tell you 4 different ways.
That's
The
fine.
fact is, as long as I've been sitting in this chair, I've asked for a CIP that's worth the paper it's printed on.
Mhm.
This violates that. I do not see a bid process. That is what I do for a living every day in Lewiston. I see somebody actually going to trucks, and I don't see the actual bid specifications. And I ask for a budget that actually is meant to be lived in. I've sat here and told other department heads to deny their requests associated with that. I won't support this.
I mean, this is just, I went out and got estimates as far as the trucks go and as far as the you know, to actually go out and get the bids, the actual bids, you know, to send it out to RFP.
Right.
That's fine, but what I did here is just to give you
The numbers to be able to have the
numbers that are
discussion.
gonna back
Yep.
it up, because I asked every one of these guys, if I go to RFP, is anything gonna change? They said, nope, this will be my bid. I'm like, okay. So this is why I bring it to you. You want formal stuff, I'll get you formal stuff, but it's gotta be done before the 25th, or else we're gonna miss out on some of the incentives.
Agreed.
So, I mean, if the formal stuff is what you want, I can get you formal stuff.
The two previous
And
discussions
The
associated with the
CIP,
CE
it
and the
was never
budget,
in my CIP, so,
it is
know.
for next year.
yeah, it is for next year.
It is for next year.
Yep.
That will be my point, and that will be where I live, because that is what I've actually told other department heads.
Yeah, and then I'll just ask for more money next year, that's okay.
I don't disagree with you, Randy.
That's fine.
I don't disagree with you.
I have one more question. So you said that if we don't do this by the 25th, we'll miss out on some of the incentives.
That's
what
correct.
What will change?
What will change is there's one other incentive other than the $1,200. So there'd be another $1,200 added on. And then there's like 4,000, some other, around $4,000 in other incentives that aren't listed that they have going towards it also. Because if you do the 27,992 from the 44, the numbers aren't going to match, because there's other incentives that are going to be. This will all be drawn out, you know, before anything takes place formally. Like I said, I can send it back to the RFP, whatever you guys want. I just did the legwork, and I got quotes from all kinds of people. Pape Chevrolet, Emerson, Lee wasn't interested. They said they couldn't compete with O'Connor or Emerson.
That's true.
I got so
That's true.
and so I've gotten quotes from Bill Dodge for GMCs. So it's not like I haven't done my legwork.
Yeah, Chair.
Please.
What's the mileage on the F-150?
It's 80-something thousand.
80,000. How come they actually put that out so long to actually be used? I mean, it just seems strange that would
When
actually
I
be
came
over
here, the truck was just sitting. I mean, it needed transmission lines, and it needed an intercooler, I think.
You had to put expenses in to put it back on the road. That's right.
Yeah, so I had to resurrect it
Yeah.
and put it back on the road. And then when this thing hands-free came along, well then, you know, I found myself always having to pull over. So then I got into the 2018 that we have, which is a foreman's truck, which is a work truck. So I basically took a truck away from the crew just so I would have something that's hands-free. And then I didn't find that very, you know, very effective, so I started using my own truck. So I pay for my own diesel, I pay for my own, you know, it's all out of my pocket.
As far as the, and I totally respect where Alan's coming from, but I would say, I mean, that's the idea of using your own truck to me is not really the best practical means of your own transportation for a bunch of different reasons. I mean, I guess my biggest concern would be the idea of just going through the process, the bid process, to make sure that we are where we should be, like we do on every other spec that we ask for.
Yeah, we have a procurement policy.
So-
That has to happen.
I mean, I would actually, I mean, even though we're going stepping beyond where we are, I know that it's a need, so I mean, it's something that's going to be done anyway. So I mean, if we can, if we have the funds and you can actually, to me, and this is my own opinion on the council, if we can actually come up with the proper paperwork to make it fit all our requirements, to me, I would actually support it. But I mean,
We meet next week. We meet on Tuesday of next week. So I
What I
think
can do is I can send it out tomorrow for RFP.
You can even go one step further. The fact is, if you want to have a friendly amendment to what's on the floor, the fact is he can be empowered to actually go out to RFP,
yeah, I
as
think
we've
that-
always done with any other vehicle or any other purchase that he's come before us.
I brought that point for that reason. We can certainly go ahead and amend the understanding that we give the approval based on the fact that the RFP process is
Right.
followed.
and
And then,
the worst thing can happen is someone can come in less.
yeah,
Worst thing that can happen, we're just going to lose out on the $1,200 because he won't be able to order it.
I would assume that they could actually, if they want to make the deal, they'll actually.
What's the deadline for doing that?
25, you said, right?
March 25th.
What
So
day
if we
is
pull
that?
the trigger on the set, well, if we pull the trigger now, contingent upon the RFP going out, we can turn that
Two
process
weeks.
over
There's 2 weeks
relatively
for
quickly,
bids, and
right?
you can still place an order,
Yeah.
but it would be after our well, we actually,
Because the
at best, you could have an extra item on it because we would have another meeting, because we're coming into budgets, you would have to have something in a special meeting to actually be voting.
Couldn't you
we
share?
have
Not
a
vote in
meeting
the
next week.
workshop.
Chair, could I,
Yes.
isn't it possible that we actually amend this to actually allow, for our approval, along the funds still come above that number that he's presented to us?
Absolutely you can.
So we wouldn't
Absolutely
actually have
can.
to come back as long as
My
actually
intent
Diane.
in then expressing my opinion
Yeah.
is not to actually hold the
Yeah.
hands, by all means. You have a motion on the floor
So,
and a second, right?
yep.
It's a second.
Who was,
Oh,
who-
the other one is that, yes, I do have
Yeah.
the main.
so as long as you
an
guys
amendment.
agree, yes, you could
Do
craft
you
it
want
that way.
to,
So I'd just amend, should I amend this at this time, Twyla, or?
based on the fact that the RFP process is followed and does not exceed the
The dollar amount that we
27,992.
actually would be
Funds
approving
available.
tonight.
Yeah, funds available.
So
Okay.
You were the second.
I was the second. So my question here, or more importantly, my ask to Randy is, if we go ahead and make that amendment, so we're basically greenlighting it, provided the RFP process goes through, understanding there's a window in the RFP that would overshoot the 25.
Right. 'Cause there's
You
a
know-
2-week process.
Yeah, I was going to say, because of that legwork that you've done, you know the players in the game and
Right.
where they're going to land because you'd said, hey, this is
Right.
probably where we're going to bid. So if that's the case, then having that conversation with them to say, hey, here's where it's at. The reality is I got to go out to bid process and close at a certain time, but there's no harm and no foul in them putting in the order in, and then if something was to change, we got a lower bid, you can go back to them, they're going to pull the plug. 'Cause the truck's it's not like you're pulling something out of their stock right there.
Right.
It's being ordered, right?
Right.
So, no harm, no foul, I would imagine. They'd want the order on the books. Worst possible case scenario is we're going to find somebody who comes in lower than them
Right.
and beats them. And then go from there.
But I've done, like I said, I've done the legwork, and I've asked them because of the RFP, and just, if this has to go out for a real bid,
Right.
what is it going to be? And they said, this will be my real bid. And I said, well, if I have to get the paperwork from you, can I get the paperwork from you? They say, yeah, no problem.
Yep, I
So
mean,
it's
that's,
not like I'm using one dealer against the other.
Yep.
I opened them up when I said I was going to open them up, which is that Wednesday, and I had them all there presented to me,
Right.
and I went with that. So nobody knows where they're at with this unless they're watching.
Sure.
I haven't told anybody numbers. I'm not playing the numbers game.
Sure.
Working one dealer against the next. Like if I was buying it for myself, that's what I'd do. But this is where they're at, and I'm just going to say, hey, can you put that in a more formal form?
I would expect if you're going to do that, based on our last discussion, Randy, from the transfer station compactor, you put a standardized proposal form that you're requiring. And things on the bottom of that form, the issues that we ran into last time with your warranty and payment terms and those kinds of things are actually spelled out on the bottom of that. And it's to level the playing field. To your point last time, if you know you've got somebody that's got a better service or a better warranty on it, it should be on the face of that document.
Just to clarify also, I did give them a slip, an RFP, a request for proposal, and it listed out everything I
Yeah,
wanted.
you gave them the specs.
Yeah, I
You
gave
ga-
them
you gave them
specs.
specs.
So it's not like I didn't send it out for RFP,
but
because
there's-
I hand delivered them to
But
everybody.
in no way, shape, or form will it pass the procurement policy
Right.
for what we have in place here. We are bypassing that.
So my question is, if we do this process, can you get all that back in time? I know you can get it back from the one that you,
He can get
you're
it back.
looking for.
He can open it. It's whether we actually have a meeting to be able to time it to be able to make an award. That's the difference.
and did we just amend this to
Yeah, I
say?
thought we amended that to allow for that. Yeah, am I
Well,
misunderstanding that?
So as long as your award needs to be able to purchase if it's underneath that threshold.
Right.
That needs to be clearly
At
stated
or
here.
underneath.
Here.
Right.
Because that needs to be ahead of that deadline.
Right.
If that is in there and she
Wasn't
is
that
actually
Fern's
not.
amendment right there? As long as it was,
Yeah.
as long as it.
No, I heard if it didn't exceed the funding available. I did not just be able to purchase. That is not in anything you said.
Mr. Chair,
Key
we
distinction.
have a motion on the floor, and I think we have
Yeah.
we have an amendment, so we need to vote both on an amendment and a
Amendment.
motion, right?
Correct. That is
Okay,
correct.
so I'd like
Is
to
the
hear what the
amendment
amendment
clear,
is.
though? And I think that's what we're trying to flesh out right now. Is the amendment clear? Everybody has a
Can you
clear
repeat what
understanding?
you understood?
Okay, so if you want to amend the amendment, first you have to vote on the amendment, just so you know.
Okay,
Right.
okay.
All right, so the amendment is the main motion based on the fact that an RFP process is followed and to not exceed the funds available.
And to allow
That's-
the
So
purchase.
First you have to vote on that, and then you can amend it to
Do the
add
second piece.
another sentence to it, and then we can
go all the way back.
All right, so that is the motion on the floor.
So is
that
the
clear?
amendment ready to be voted on?
Yeah, I think we could do that.
Yeah, I think we could do that as well.
One step at a time.
All in favor?
Of the amendment.
Okay, the amendment passes 7-0. Now you
No.
want to
No.
amend the
No,
amendment?
no,
which one?
Didn't pass.
I will not
No?
support that.
Okay, so it's 6-1 Ward. Okay, yeah, got it. And then do you want to amend your amendment for one more phrase?
Yes.
Yes, and that would be to allow to purchase if that, is that correct?
To allow the purchase if the funding is available.
If the funding is available and doesn't exceed the dollar amount.
The total dollar amount.
Not
yeah.
just, you're the second.
Yeah, I am the second on that.
So when you say that, you mean it doesn't need to come back to council?
Correct.
Right. That's
What we're saying, we don't need to have a meeting in order for that to happen.
So how is that any different than what he's presented tonight?
It isn't.
You're right, it isn't. But the idea is that
It actually truly
in
is.
principle, we need to stick
He
with
is
what.
formalizing the RFP
Yes.
for the purchasing policy, and we're empowering that in advance. The fact is, if anything that's actually here, we're bypassing the purchasing policy because there was no formalized bid on this topic. Whether he actually presented it to it or not, and the fact that awards need to be followed through the purchasing policy through the council.
And that's the reason for it. We can't circumvent process. We didn't do it for others who have tried in the past, and we cannot do it now.
I know, but I don't feel comfortable with him going through the process after tonight and not bringing it back to council for the final ratification.
And that's a good piece to be able to be had. And
I
that
don't feel
that is a valid
comfortable for
opinion.
myself and for staff to do that. I think if you want him to go through the formal bid process, he needs to do it, and that needs to come back.
I think the only reason we considered going out of this, and I'm not going to speak for everyone, but I'll speak for myself, is because of the timeline stress stating very
Understand that.
clearly that we're going to, I want
know.
to take advantage of this. I have the appropriate funds to be able to do this, so it's out of money now in this current budget, but I'm up against a deadline. So we're trying to be mindful of that and
Which is
supporting
why
that.
we
But
brought it to you.
I'm perfectly fine with pulling back and not taking advantage of this, because that's where I was standing initially. I was just trying to be understanding of the situation. But I'm more than fine with pulling back and not making the move on this truck as well. I know that's not what you want to hear. But if we feel like we want to stay sticklers to the black and white rule of using the procurement policy as intended, and that means coming back to council after you get your RFP process completed, and the bidding process completed, then I'm perfectly fine with that too. I just felt like I wanted to be responsive to what.
And we'll just
we're hearing
add
from staff.
1,200 to that 27,992.
Correct.
Right.
So let that be noted that if you're going to wait till after the 25th,
That's the potential
Yeah,
the
difference.
potential is that we're going to have to add $1,200. So that'll have to be amended.
Diane, so it's on principle. I want to understand that. You're saying it's on principle that it should have to come back to council to complete the ratification of the
Yeah, I
process
mean, if you
in
want to
full.
follow the procurement policy, that's what it
It's
really needs to
not
do.
principle. That is staff's recommendation.
No, I understand.
That is not
That's-
principle.
We vote on that
Staff's
on the
recommendation.
24th. I know we're having a budget hearing. Could we, just come into session for 2 minutes and vote yes or no on it, and then do our budget session?
Can I ask a
That'll be
question?
2 weeks from now.
What's happening next week on Tuesday?
We've got
St.
a
Patty's
regular
Day.
council
We
meeting.
can't
plus
meet
the-
that deadline for
For
this
the
paperwork?
budget, I think
In
the
writing.
bid process
14
is 2 weeks.
Yeah,
2 weeks.
14 days.
Oh, we have to allow
Yeah.
14 days.
Yes.
that's
Even though I have everything in,
Yeah.
doesn't matter.
But if you did the RFP process and everybody got it all in that week, can you shortcut it? You can't?
That's up to Alan, not me.
My 2-week rule, and the fact is, why bother? What he did is actually legit. If you're actually going to go out and ask for the quotes, you're bypassing the process anyways. You're shortening the window. You're narrowing who's actually going to be able to respond. And that is one of the criticisms he's heard from me. And the fact is, in that regard, you should standardize because you're limiting the people that actually could potentially bid.
Okay.
There's a Chevy dealership out of Massachusetts that were part of the buying consortium. They could, in theory, pick this up to be able to bid if they saw it on wherever Randy would post it. You're
Yeah, I
limiting
thought
the pool.
I did think of going to banks out in,
Yep.
but with the tax-free New Hampshire and being here, there was really no difference.
And then
because-
then it comes down to where you can get it serviced.
But
Sometimes.
the thing is, it's $9,700 is municipal buying no matter where you're at.
Yep.
And they already knew everybody was $9,700, so I know they already got in touch with the dealership. That's across the board because you're a municipality. And then the other incentives were, the advertising and the 3%. I mean, it's across the board. They were pretty all up front, were pretty honest with me, so.
So
The only other number after that was what they were making. You know,
Right.
the little bit that we're making on the truck.
I want to circle back around, just make sure we're putting it all on the table and I think everybody understands. Because I know I'm a little muddy on this. We've jumped around a little bit. So we're saying that the process that he went through is outside of what would be the normal bidding process. Do we all agree upon that? Okay. And if that's the case, we're at a point now tonight where we're saying, understand everything that you've outlined, makes perfect sense. However, there's a formal bidding process that we need to go through so we can open it up to, like Alan said, all potential bidders. If we start the clock tomorrow on that, then it's going to land on the 25th or the day of the deadline for the bidding to close, right?
And that, just for nature of full disclosure, that is me. The 14 days that he just quoted, that's because that is one of the criticisms that I brought to him, is that it's too narrow a window because it actually does limit who will be able to respond.
Yep. And so where we stand on that now is, and show of hands, how many of us agree with the funding and the way that it's funded and that have no objections to it? The way that it's funded.
No, the process is you actually have an amendment, and then we go back to that last item.
Right. I'm just saying, kind of running it all down. So none of us disagree with the way that it's funding. The funding is fine.
I completely disagree.
You completely disagree with the funding.
LCIP budget, and it's not there, it's next year, so you were going to get a no across the board no matter how you play this.
Okay, that's fine. I just want to understand that. And so if that's the case and that's where we land, which we talked about that before, I don't say we all, I'm just saying that.
Right.
We have a clear line that we know that if that's the case, we say process, and if we ask you to go through the process, the reality is we're going to miss out on the opportunity, so it's going to cost more money in the end, but it'll be part of what we had talked about, which is truck in the CIP for the following year. Everybody's on board with that? Everybody follows that clearly?
Mr. Chair, I understand your concern. I also understand we have a public works director that's fairly new in the job. I also understand that we have a procedure in place that we've pretty much followed, except when we haven't.
Right.
And I'm all for saving $1,200. However, we get it done. So, in my case, if you ask me to vote tonight, I'm gonna vote for it, even if I stand by myself.
Sure.
Because I think we should stand by him and support him this time. He could also be fairly warned that we can't do that in the future, and that's what I'm saying.
So we have an amended amendment on the floor. Are you willing to be able to?
I don't even know what it is.
You voted on the first
So
one.
the amendment that's
This
on
is
the
going to an
floor
RFP.
is,
Are we allowing him to be able to purchase? The recommendation from staff is to be able to say, no, it comes back before us. If there's no other discussion, I will move
that
it.
amendment
I will move.
says,
the amendment is to allow the purchase of it if funding's available and doesn't exceed the total dollar amount.
which is the same thing as what we have essentially. The recommendation was to buy it, right?
Just not having to come back to us, that's all.
Right.
Because you reserve the right to accept and reject all bids.
And what we're saying is, we accept this contingent upon, boom.
But you don't even know what you're, you
agreeing
still
to.
need to,
Well, agreeing to the dollar amount or below, which we've outlined, which he's outlined here today and outlined in the.
I just don't think that's staff's decision to make when we're going through a bid process. I think that needs to be with the council.
Okay, so
That if you're gonna make us go through it again, the right way, it needs to come back to council. It should not be up to staff to make that decision. That's just, I just
not
don't
asking
think.
staff. I don't see how we're making. I don't see how we're asking
No, but what
staff to
she's
make it.
saying-
No, I understand. I understand very clearly what she's saying. We're not asking staff to make the decision, but I understand what you're saying. So
Well,
it's
you
fine.
It may not
be
be
if-
apples to apples when dealing with
No,
trucks
no.
here. I mean, it could say, okay, it's $1,000 less, but it's a Ford instead of a Chevy.
Right.
Well, that's fine.
Twyla, how do we back up from this?
Do you want to withdraw this amendment, the
I'd
second
like to
amendment?
withdraw this amendment.
It's been seconded.
Yeah, you can
gotta
both,
withdraw the
if
second
you
too.
both want to withdraw it.
Yes,
did you
I do
both
want to
want
withdraw.
So
Okay,
can I make
so,
another amendment?
Didn't we vote on that?
Amendment,
You
just
can
say
do
vote.
motion.
second amendment.
Good.
On the first amendment you
Ready to
have.
vote?
So you still have the first amendment on the floor,
Which is the one that says,
based on the fact that the RFP process is followed not to exceed funds available.
I think we should vote that one down and go with the original
So
amendment.
do you want to vote on your main motion as amended and this?
Yes,
move it all
let's
down?
just
Is
get
that how
rid of it.
works?
No, you can vote down
The motion.
the, no, we voted the motion.
That passed.
The motion hasn't
The
passed
motion
as
itself was
amended.
withdrawn.
I would like to actually just, if we can actually correct this to the point of just allowing them to go out to bid and just bring in to do the bid process proper way and see if it comes in within 2 weeks, and if it works on that particular day and it actually flies.
Yeah, we'd have to amend it to be 13 days instead of 14 and bend the
Yeah, there you
rule
go. We can
because,
do that.
you know, to be able to vote on that ourselves.
That 14 days is subjective as heck. It is not hard and fast. It is not in our purchasing policy. It's a recommendation
Right.
from somebody that is not directly even staffed.
And
It
in
is
my
coming
opinion,
from me.
we should say 13 days. That's realistically going to get everybody in there, and it would let us
can do
vote
that.
on it in 2 weeks at our meeting, and we, you know.
How do we
Well,
bring
you're not
that
gonna-
into a
It's not going to
motion?
make the agenda
Right.
packet.
Well, can't you?
Agenda packet has to be done by.
Wants a special meeting on the
Right,
24th.
But that's, you still.
When's our next meeting?
It's still not going to, because we would have to have the agenda out by the
Third.
20th.
Yeah.
24th,
Everything
right?
has to be in by Thursday, right?
For the-
First day
yeah.
before.
Yep.
And
So
you
you're
wouldn't
not
have the
gonna-
numbers.
But the bottom line, the answer's gonna be the same, because it's gonna be the same amount. So no matter if you wanna
The only
put it
di-
off and wait, that's totally up to you guys sitting up there. But I'm just saying, at the end of it all, it's all gonna be the same. I'm just gonna get some more paperwork for you guys to satisfy whoever, and that's that. If
Can
we
I
can
just
make it
ask a
within the
question?
14 days.
So if it was as easy as that, then why didn't we just do that to begin with?
What I did is I brought this to you guys and saying this is what I'd like to have. Without going out to formal bid. I gave them all an RFP. This is what I want. This is what I'm looking for in a truck. They all priced it out, just like I would formally after you guys give me the okay to go do it. This was sort of like just to put the feelers out there. How much am I going to have to ask council for? So basically I did all the same steps without, the blessing from God and saying, okay, you can go do this. So basically what I did, I took it upon myself to create an RFP. I gave it to everybody. I said, I'd like to have pricing for this truck. These are the specs. What can you give me to bring to council? And this
Right,
is what I've done.
But what I'm saying is that didn't happen in a week's time, and from the last time that we met, then
No, I've been going at this over 2-3 weeks.
that's what I'm saying is the
Yeah,
last
I've taken
meeting you
more
could
than
have come.
14 days to get this done.
Right, but what I'm saying is the last meeting you could have come out to us asking for permission to go out to bid, and then this problem would have been solved.
Yeah, all this took place because I had to go buy a part. And I saw a salesman I knew, and he goes, hey, we just started shooting the breeze. I said, oh, next year I'll be looking for some trucks. He goes, oh, we got great deals this year. And started telling me, and that's what got the wheels turning, and then looking at what I had left for money, and I was like, wow, this is a perfect year to buy one because there's 24 grand there, and I only have to choke up 3,800 bucks.
It's not that we don't, I'll be the first to say, and I think we all feel the same way. It's not that we don't appreciate the initiative and where you're going with this. It's just a matter of making sure that we're across the board equitable. And to Don's point, we follow the policy except for the time that we didn't. But for the most part, this is where we live. And so it's not that I don't think any one of us don't want to save money. We do. But at the same time, it's the appearance and the perception of that we need to make sure that we're following that across the board. Is there any give on these? If the salesmen want to make the sale, you think about it as well as I do. We all get that same pressure, the high pressure sale. Oh, you got to pull it off today, or it's not going to happen. I'd like to think that if they want to get the sale done, especially if it's something they want to maintain the business and open it
If you
up.
look at the numbers, they're all within. Everybody knew it was $9,700 off.
Right.
Like I said, if you guys want to scratch this, I don't care. I'll use my truck and I can bill the town for per mile 53 cents a mile, and I did it one pay period. It was over $300.
Right.
So, but I haven't done that because it's a pain for me to say I went from this street to that street to this street to that
I
street.
believe it's a policy that we don't allow that, so in the
I
past,
do over-
right? The idea of actually allowing, we don't typically support the idea of personnel using their own vehicles during the day. That's come up multiple times. So again, that's why I was actually leaning towards this. It's not just a money issue; it's a liability issue that we run into.
Yep.
So that's the same thing.
I've got all my stuff in that truck, my hard hat, my safety vest, all my stuff's in there. If the guys take the truck, half the stuff's gone by the time it gets back, so.
Your question?
The 07's not moving, right?
No.
Sure. I believe that if we, as a whole council, withdraw the amendment because it has been voted on, then we're back to the original motion again, and I would like to vote on the original motion.
We
if
still
that's
have an
possible.
amendment that's approved, your amendment.
I know. We
Yeah.
did
Withdrawn
So
it.
then,
we can't withdraw that, but if you vote on your main motion as amended and you don't pass it, then you could just make a new motion to go out to bid.
I'm not sure if that's what Don wanted.
Okay, so point of order.
Well, it's
You
the
want
same
to
thing.
you want to vote on the recommendation,
Yes, I
correct?
do.
So if we vote,
To get rid of this motion.
we have to get rid of the one we just voted on,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
the amendment, and then we can vote on the one you want.
So we reconsider the
Stop,
amendment and
stop.
vote
I was
again.
going to say, stop me if I'm wrong on this, Twyla, because I think I heard what you said there.
Motion to reconsider is different.
But how about a motion to postpone indefinitely?
Oh, wait,
But you
Yeah.
don't want to
No.
indefinitely postpone it because you really want
then
to
you
vote
can't go
on it
back to the
at
original
some
item.
point.
Can't go.
You want to buy a truck.
Scale, then you go back to-
Good try, though.
I didn't know it was going to be this difficult, to tell you the truth.
We didn't either.
So just
I've met me,
go
I did.
ahead
Hey,
and
what's
make
the
a
good
vote
one?
on your main motion.
Okay.
And if it doesn't pass, then you're free to
Okay. I see. Okay.
make
Okay.
a new motion.
Okay, so is everybody
Here's the
clear?
vote.
Main motion as amended would be to authorize the purchase of the new the Public Works truck from Emerson Chevrolet in that amount of $27,992 and to redesignate the trash trailer balance of $24,122 to this purchase based on the fact that RFP process is followed not to exceed the available funds. Now,
in
all
favor?
those in favor would
That's the
be,
amended
that's the main motion as amended,
Okay.
and if you didn't want that, then
Can
you
we
can make a
still
new
have
one
room for
after.
discussion prior to vote, or do we have to?
You got a question?
Let's
Yes.
vote first.
I'd like to move.
Yeah, I think
I
we beat
I
that
just,
horse.
just wanted to ask that clear. Diane, do you feel that you have enough bid information to feel that was proper?
Well, that's right. She recommends it.
I know she recommends it. The question is, do you feel that the process was done correctly for the bid process that you would allow this dollar amount
I
as
think
a manager?
for what he got for information, what he was looking for, yes. Did it go out to everybody? No. Because he hand-delivered it to certain people. It didn't get posted anywhere, so to
You brought it
Alan's
forward, so
point,
you felt it was actually a
I
met
only,
your
yes, I only
criteria.
agreed to do this because of the savings, and because our last meeting was on February 18th? So, and this all happened after that, and then because of the March 25th deadline. If we didn't have that March 25th deadline, then
There'd
we
be
would be
no-
having
You
a
wouldn't
totally
be,
different.
you wouldn't be entertaining it.
Yeah.
Right.
No, exactly. And to me, I mean, I could have said, no, Randy, we're not going to do this, but then we would have lost some money, and is it up to me to make that decision? So
It's
that's
just up
why
to
I
you to
brought it
bring
to
it,
council.
bring it what's correct, that's all.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the end result.
As
So,
far as what he's done through the bid process, and he gave everybody the specs, they gave him a quote back. I think there was only one truck that didn't meet the specs.
Mm-hmm.
I
And
think he's done his-
then Lee didn't even
Yeah,
respond. He said that he wouldn't be in the ballpark.
yeah.
Mr.
Okay,
Chair,
that was my
to
question.
Cassie's point, could we move the question?
Yes. I heard one question before that. That's why I entertained the question. Okay. All in favor? Opposed?
Is that 7?
Yes, that was 7-0.
Just checking this time.
I think it's
Okay,
the first time I've ever done
so-
that.
So that's defeated, okay, and now you can just make whatever motion you want. If you want to
Do you
go
have a
out to
motion?
RFP or whatever.
Did you have a motion?
I have a motion to purchase the new PW truck from Emerson Chevrolet in the amount of $27,992 and redesignate the trash trailer balance of $24,122 to this purchase.
I need a second.
Needs to include the 3,000 and some
30,
change
yeah.
from the.
$38.70 for my rental.
Yeah, that too.
Do I have a second on that?
I'll second.
All in favor? Oh, discussion.
Yeah,
Had a question.
that's
Yeah,
what I say. I think
my
I heard-
discussion
I heard the
is
question.
reason and again, just to be clear, I mean, I totally agree with Alan, the idea of the process is in place. I mean,
Yep.
whether or not we could have reached 10 dealers or 4 dealers, there is Alan is standing on definitely a financial, job type of description.
Yep.
The only reason I'm actually going with it, because Diane actually is putting her blessing behind it, and as a council, if we can't, it's really for her to actually either pass or fail on this. So, if she's saying that everything was met, that's the reason I'm actually gonna vote.
No, I don't disagree.
Yeah.
You guys heard mine. I had nothing
Yep.
more to offer. Any other dialogue? All in favor?
1, 2, 3, 4, is that 4? Okay.
Opposed?
See,
That's why we're here.
That's right.
And
We're
Alan?
not all gonna
It
agree. every
doesn't
night,
always go
Right.
7-0.
and it shouldn't.
that's a 4,
Well,
3,
anyway, I thank you
right?
very much.
Thank you, Randy.
Randy, I thank you for everything you did on this, by the way.
Thank you. Yep.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I will not vote on anything that doesn't follow the process in the future, just to let you know.
Actually, you voted because it actually somewhat did follow the process to a certain aspect.
Right.
Follow which process?
That's the question.
The bid process, the RFP
That was
process.
the point.
Yeah.
That was the
I
point.
get it. Got
Yeah.
your point.
Next item, 12.
Order 2020-50, the MDOT modification number 1 to the three-party agreement.
So there's actually two three-party agreements. One is for the Route 125 project from the intersection of Route 196 and 125 starting at that intersection at the lights, going all the way to Houston Street. The modification is just in the timing. It's to extend the expiration date from 12/30/2019 to 12/31/2027. They always anticipate at least 3 years after the project completion date when they do an agreement, so that's that one. And they have not done any project estimate updates, so you're going to see the original project estimate, which is way off compared to what it is now. And the other one is from Houston Street out to the urban compact line. And again, it's just the expiration date and the project delayed due to high bid prices is what they're giving for an explanation.
Basically, Mayor, Chair,
Please.
make a motion for discussion, if that's what you need.
I'll take the second.
Second.
So basically, the modification of this is not dollars, it's actually
No,
time,
it's just the timing only.
Yep.
Just the expiration of the agreement.
which we have zero control in, so.
And this could have just as easily been one of the projects that MDOT killed too. So if they actually are willing to extend, in my opinion, it is. Keep it on the table.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments? All in favor?
7-0. Order passed.
Thank you. Next item, Twyla?
Order 2020, number 51, MDOT construction overlimit permit.
This is the annual permit that we have to do with DOT when they're doing work on 196. You've had this come before you several times. So they require the town to sign an overlimit agreement. And typically it doesn't affect us because it's on roads that we don't post anyway. And when they start the work, it's after the road's posting period anyway. So, but they do require the municipal officers to sign the agreement, and that's all this is. And this is for the work that's going to be done on 196 this summer. That's going to go from Topsom into Lisbon, and then from Lisbon out to Lewiston.
I'll make that motion.
Second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
We only do it even if we said no, so.
Right. Would be negligent on that one. Next item, Twyla.
Order 2020, number 52, the dispatch service agreement with Lisbon Emergency.
So the only thing that we changed on that was the expiration date and then the dollar amount per year. Typically, it goes up $500 a year, and that's what I did in this contract. And then we also changed Jim's title, and I think the copy that's in the packet didn't have the change in his title, but I do have that. No other changes to the agreement for dispatching services.
Since it's not in the packet, what's the title change? Just curious.
From, yeah, he's always been director, and it's chief service, chief of service.
Chief, can you step to the podium? Just a question. This is the last year of the three-year agreement between us and Bowden and you? Or is it the second going into the third year? I forget.
It's the third.
It's the second going into the third in July. July.
One of the things that actually confused me, and I know I see this every year, and the fact is, but focusing on what we're actually charging you, knowing that we actually pay back to what actually we give Lisbon Emergency, how does that impact into this budget? I mean, because I'm seeing that it's going from 5,500 to 7,000 and 5,000 to 6,500. That obviously plays into your budget, and are we shooting ourselves in the foot by increasing this?
We plan on the increase, so the amount of money we're going to be charging the town in the next contract will reflect the 500 increase in dispatching per year.
So it's already in yours. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. That was the only question I had. It just seems like when I read this, Norm quotes me all the time with the one basket of goods. It just seems like I'm inflating this basket of goods just to actually have to give it back to you in a allocation over the next year.
Yep.
That's what I'm reading. Okay. Just
And
unclear.
the board of directors voted 7-0 with 2 abstaining.
Okay.
This has been approved by the board.
They are good with it?
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions, Chief, on the topic? All in favor, then?
Would have passed 7-0.
Thank you for sitting through
Who made
that,
the
Chief.
motion? Alan?
Yes.
Who made the motion? I don't have a,
Oh, sorry.
I'm thinking we do need a motion in a second.
I'll make a
We did
motion.
vote.
That's kind of a big deal. I'll make the motion.
Wow.
Second.
Okay, thank you.
Nice time for a point
Still
of order. I like
7-0.
that.
Okay.
What I usually try to do is get discussion. I'll go back up.
That was legitimately the cart before the horse.
Good thing we have a parliamentarian over there.
Thank you.
All right.
Next item, Twyla.
Order 2020 number 53, tax acquired property disposal.
So these two still remain unpaid, and I would like permission to put these out to bid. I do have one other on the books, but that person is incarcerated right now, so I'm going to wait till he gets out, and then he's already called me.
Make a motion of discussion.
I'll take a second for that.
Second.
Second.
Nope, let him
Got it right
finish.
there.
These places actually lived in, occupied at the present time?
24 Bowden Street is not.
Is not. The other one is.
And
Do
we
we-
don't do anything. All we do is put it out to bid. We don't have keys to the house. We don't
We don't have any
remove
legal
anybody from the house.
limitations
That's
as-
up to whoever buys it.
Yeah, I mean, as far as weather-wise.
Because all we're going to do is issue a quick claim deed.
But we're not held to any standard as far as for
Wow, that's
during the
nasty.
winter months or anything, the idea of having someone actually have them move out of a home or anything like that?
We're
is-
not-
Okay,
We're not doing any of that.
Yeah,
They're
what's the
still-
liability if we do move forward to dispose of? If we're doing that, are we considered the owners of, or just lien holders?
We're lien holders.
I need to understand that a little bit better. Is there any liability to us? If something happens, so we change this over, we vote for this right now, and I'm no legal expert here, but are we taking possession at that time?
We
If
are not taking possession of this.
Just wanted to understand that a little bit better.
in a sense, we already are, right?
Have.
We have.
We've foreclosed on it.
Yeah, we actually
But for-
already own it.
So if
But
we
in
do,
the
then are
term
we
that-
liable if folks are in there right now? And should we be removing them? That's my ask. I'm just trying to understand this.
Yeah.
I think we ought to look at that down the road if we can't sell
Yes.
it. But typically, we are able to unload
Yeah,
these.
if it's occupied, I just am concerned
Yep.
about liability. That's my only question. That's it.
I'm a broken record associated with Lewiston, but the fact that Lewiston typically does not tax acquire anything that's occupied, just for that muddy reason. It gets nasty down the road.
Is there, I mean, is it, I mean, I'm not sure, we haven't really done a whole lot in the past that has been occupied.
Right, it usually doesn't present itself.
So we're in a unique new position here. So I would be in favor of moving on the unoccupied property. I would hold off, and I don't know if it's a legal opinion from Dan that we need or what the next step is on this. I'm willing to entertain
And we are meeting next
suggestions
week,
as to
right,
what that might look like. You got anything for us, Diane, as what that might be the next step? Or should we go out to Dan?
No, we can go out to Dan.
I would just, I mean, it does seem like a little odd, I mean, in the sense where, I mean, we do put it for bid and a quick cleat, but still, at that point in time, we are the ones that actually are, we're the negotiating party at that point in time of the sale of the property, right? So, I mean,
People in there, somebody takes a header off the balcony or whatever, and whose responsibility is it then?
Is the occupant the owner
It's
or
his
the
son.
former owner?
His son.
So he's not the owner.
It's not the owner.
So he's a renter, essentially, or non-renter.
Tenant.
Regardless, if
Tenant. He is a
if
tenant.
tenant inside and he
So-
trips, slips, and falls, and we are in the process of moving that on in a bid, then
That's the
I'm
question,
sure
then,
there's
if
some,
we're
I
not-
want to hear from Dan on this one. I know me personally.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
Yes, please.
correct me if I'm wrong, but we already foreclosed on it. So
Correct.
right now, we are in the same, like, we're worried about legal position. We're in that right now, as opposed to if we authorize Diane to put this out for bid. Like, if we put her out for bid, we haven't changed our legal standing
Right.
in
Right.
any regard.
because we foreclosed on
You
it.
actually
Right,
are, because you're now actually engaging in potentially selling a property with somebody still in it, rather than addressing that piece, the question of when do you actually unoccupy the building before sale. I think
don't.
that's what's being discussed.
It's up to the person who
Right.
purchases it, and it purchases
Agreed,
it
which is what Diane is
and
presenting.
gets the quitclaim deed. At that point, it's their responsibility to either remove the person or make them a tenant.
Right. I bring this up because like the scenario where Alan just mentioned, where somebody falls or whatever on property, like if that's
It's still an issue.
it's still an issue right
Still
now.
an issue, yes.
Oh, yeah.
So I was just
Which is why the
However-
point that I made is the fact that Lewiston typically does not tax acquire unless it's unoccupied for a reason, because you've already got that
But
land.
it's already been
But
tax acquired.
technically, if the property has a mortgage,
Which it can if we already acquired it, does it?
yes,
That
it
would've-
can.
that would've
Because
felt-
tax
I
acquired
don't believe this one has a mortgage.
Right, but
It could.
it could.
Oh, okay.
I'm saying for future.
Yeah.
So right now, the example you're talking about, it does not have a mortgage. So the only piece that was on there was what's owed in tax, which is we've already foreclosed on, and so we're in the jackpot either way if something bad happens. Got that point. So all we're voting on today is whether or not we're going to put it out to bids, somebody could buy it, and then let them be responsible for moving the person. My only ask was to understand what our liability was. So I'm perfectly fine with moving forward on the going ahead and putting it out to bid. I just want to understand, to Alan's point, that the next time this scenario comes up and we know it's occupied, we might want to pump the brakes before we get into that. So we're not.
We're never going to know if they're going to pay before the foreclosure date. That's the problem.
No, it's true, and I'm not saying it's easy. I'm just saying that I would want to
We'd
know
have
that.
To do waiver of foreclosures before the foreclosure date.
Mr. Chair, I have a
And
question for the manager. How long?
And I just think that that's, if you start doing that, nobody's going to want to pay their taxes.
I have a
Especially-
question. How long was this in arrears for? How many years?
More
Have
than
taxes
3.
Not been, so
Three-
more than 3 years.
Well,
without
it's 3
any,
years by the time.
So basically 3 years without any payment on this. Just for the
so
public
maybe
at
then
home,
we-
this isn't.
It's
I
not-
missed my tax by a
it's
month
not-
and I got foreclosed. It
it's
was
not a new
3
topic.
years.
Right.
So maybe that's the discussion, and maybe that's the how do we identify when is the cutoff point, and all bets are off, and then we move forward in the process. I just to that point, I'm not ready after 6 months or a year to. I don't necessarily know it's the right play, because we don't know what situations. I don't want to run down too far down this road. I think we've spent a lot of time on it already.
Yep.
I think for this specific example for tonight, I know what we're at. I just asked a question about liability because I wanted to understand it a little bit better, at least if we had any sort of grasp as to what that might look like. So we know at least a little bit better. I still want to
It
know why we want to move forward.
Might
on
be
something.
worth asking the attorney.
Yeah, no, I
what
think
to
that's
do
where
in
we're
the
at.
future.
I would want a
Whatever
recommendation.
we foreclose on, our general liability will cover it. We don't have any building coverage on it, but our general liability covers anything that we foreclose on.
I just want to.
But it's
Yeah.
automatic.
Technically, to that point, the fact that it should have been added to our insurance, and as we tax acquired that, it should have been
If
on
we-
our insurance.
After 60 days.
Right.
What happens in the meantime?
Okay, so
I,
there's
no, I can add it.
Yeah, there's
Right.
Typically don't want to do it until after 60 days.
And you're hoping at that point it's already sold, so it
Yeah.
doesn't,
Yeah.
it's come and gone.
Okay.
There's a motion and a second.
There's a motion on the stack, absolutely. Any other questions?
Cassie, you got anything?
The, what's the, I guess the question would be, if I may, Chair, what's the process as far as the bid process? Diane, again, is it actually
We'll advertise it.
advertise it on just our website or in paper, or
No,
how's
I'll
that?
put a notice in the Sun Journal as well.
You notify your butters?
A month.
You notify your butters?
In case they want to buy it.
Yeah, I can. Yep.
That's a good idea.
Are we required to do that by print medium only, or can we do it via their web? Are we required to do that by law via print media only?
No.
I mean, if we actually have an abandoned car legally,
does-
we're responsible for one ad in paper before we actually get rid of an abandoned car.
There's no requirement to print media.
Okay, that's what I was
It's
just going to say.
But the question becomes, what do you want to invest for something that may or may not have value?
Right.
Typically, they're vacant parcels that have been abandoned for a variety of reasons, limited development potential.
Right. Cool, thank you.
But no, the reason I asked about a butter is because we always draw the line, but because of that, it's usually a vacant parcel, and I am required to draw a 300-foot circumference around that property and notify everybody in it. That way they know what's going on.
At least gets them in the loop, right?
Right. All right, any other questions? All in favor?
7-0, order passed.
Next item?
Order 2020, number 54, the council's summer holiday meeting schedule.
Did anybody have any issue with either date? The staff is proposing July 14th and August 11th, which are the middle of the road for the monthly schedules, to try to stay with the one meeting per month as we've done in the last 2 years.
It's worked. It's worked.
And the other thing that's on here is you're seeing it well in advance for
December
Christmas Eve to allow staff time. The only question I have is, we talking all offices, including transfer station? Because that question will come up.
Yes,
So-
and they'll have to use accrued time.
And they will be open again on the Saturday, the 26th, because the
Yes.
holiday is the 24th and the 25th.
Yes.
That will be the
Yes.
key snag that we will all hear.
We're also wondering about the November 3rd election, if it's the presidential on the 3rd.
That would be...
Did you want to meet on once in November on the 17th or the following week on the 10th?
I would advocate that we keep to the one meeting rule in November for the same reasons.
I would say November 10th too, just because of the, but that's just my take.
Yeah,
November
spread them out a little bit. Right.
So,
One meeting on the 10th instead.
Everybody okay with that?
Diane,
You can always
you have
add
another
one
thought
if we
there?
need to.
November 10th.
We have the ability, right? We have
Yeah.
the ability to add one if we need one.
Yeah, I was going to say, we'll always flex if something comes up. Especially if it's later towards the holiday and somebody wants to bring in turkey.
And
Do you want to make a motion for that?
no elections here, right? So that usually always plays into it too, right? Who's up? Anybody?
What?
No, I don't think anybody's up.
Fern's up.
Fern?
Oh,
Oh, is there Fern?
The one seat. Okay, I know it always
Fern's up
plays,
one anyway.
that
seat
always
again?
plays into
Yeah.
the discussion too when we get into June. Is the fact is, because new council, which is why we usually stay away from that Tuesday night as well.
I think I just heard say make his intent to take out his papers again, so I think we're all set.
Is there do we have a motion?
Do we need a motion?
Yes, I need a motion.
I'll make a motion.
I need the second.
Second.
I have a second.
What is the motion?
The motion is July 14th, August 11th, December 24th would actually be allowing staff time, so they would use their accrued time,
And November 10th.
and November 10th
Okay.
for one meeting in November for the council. All in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
Thanks.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, please.
Closing in on the end.
could I offer a quick recess?
How many do we have left?
No, it's good. I understand where my
No,
friend's going.
2 minutes. 2 minutes.
Do we have to do any
I-
voting on
I
that?
am not
No,
gonna-
we good.
I'm not going to deny the man, no. That is just- Yes, go.
Oh, you gotta go.
Shall I turn off the cameras and then?
No, we'll sit here and have Norm sing show tunes.
We will?
Why don't you, could you get into other business as far as the
Yeah,
company?
let's do the,
Is there any of these we don't have to have a discussion on?
committee reports. Committee reports. Let's
Oh, here we go.
school. Anything other than we didn't already hear tonight?
No. No.
Planning.
Meeting Thursday, I haven't been, so I don't know.
Right. LDC, sir.
Tomorrow night here, meeting, so hopefully there'll be more. Any questions, feel free to call the town, ask Brett, and I'm sure he can fill you in.
Conservation meets later in the month as well, too. I have seen they're working on invasive species. Mr. Seaman is actually attending a workshop on that and trying to get moving on the Beaver Park project as well, or plan, I should say. Recreation.
Well, let's see. We got Fishing Derby May 16. Costa Rica trip is still planned for April 7th. Summer planning is underway. Boat launch info board blew over in the high winds, so that'll get repaired. Pretty exciting stuff in recreation land.
County budget is nothing right now. Thank you. Library.
They've hired their last person to fill up to full staff, so they actually have the full team going now. So
Nice.
you aren't having to cover everybody else's shifts. And I haven't got a chance to meet the new person yet, but I hear it's going smoothly.
Water.
Water Department met tonight, which is why I can remember what they discussed. On March 2nd, they had an alarm about 1:30 in the afternoon that involved the standpipe, Verizon, T-Mobile site, and the police, and there was a lot of damage done up there to T-Mobile and to Verizon, not so much to the Water Department, except there was a lot of labor in reconnecting electrical things. More to come on that. On the 7th of February, they had a 8-inch main break at the corner of Summer and Edgecombe. That got repaired in record time by, as they said, by Ray Labby and Sons crew. They were very happy with them. And other than that, more moving of pipes and moving of utilities, things like that. And they've just added a new staff member. So,
Thank you. Town manager.
So, we are part of Maine Power Options, and we do our fuel bids. And because of what's been going on recently in the past week with the stock market and what's going on with the fuel, they're looking to go out to bid right off on the fuel bids. I gave them my updated figures today, so I'm hoping to know by a couple of days, but it looks like that we can lock in really cheap, and I'd like permission to be able to do that, because whatever they give you for a price is only going to be good for that day. So I don't think it's going to get any cheaper, but I think now's a good time to do it, and it would take effect when our current contracts expire, which is September 30th.
Do we need to make a motion on that?
You have an item.
We do.
We do another one for the medium electricity accounts, and that's going to be the same reason when we get back up to the agenda.
3 weeks ago, I felt the same on fuel, and the fact that then the price actually dropped. So I am encouraged that we stand to get better pricing than I was able to get, which is still good at that point in time. Fuel is unfortunately at a historic low, and fueled by a variety of different things, including the current crisis with everybody stockpiling because of the virus and all the other stuff that's going on. But it is my opinion that Diane's in the right place to be doing this at the right time, and it's 2 months ahead of what we normally. It's usually end of April.
Actually, it was June last year.
Yeah.
Because I went through Maine Power Options.
If they're entertaining, I think it's to our advantage to allow her to be able to do so.
It's nothing that you can do and then bring it back to council later on for approval, because it's only good for that moment in time.
So can we amend, if we go back to the 2056, can we actually amend
can
that
do
to
it up
actually
there
to
and
do
add
the
the
main
fuel
power
and
and fuel as the same motion?
Yeah, and then we had our DOT meeting to talk about the Route 125 project, the Main Street project. That went well. I think, they're going to go out to bid in 2021, but the work still is not going to start until 2023. We may get a couple of months, but
If the road's
no
still there.
calendar. They've got a lot of work that they still have to do, and it's going to depend on what the bid prices are. I did ask them to put the street lights.
Where's that again?
Houston Street.
That's where it gets bad.
Yeah.
I was noticing that the other day when I was driving out that way.
We already repaved it once.
No, actually, the compact shows it's just south of Burr Road. And just south of
It's at that bridge.
down on Main Street, yeah.
Yeah.
Right by the bridge. They're gonna redo.
That's the worst section, because to your point, we did patch the other stuff closer to Main Street, which seems to be old. Do I know that it's actually going to last till the 2023? But we don't have a choice.
No, but
in that regard, Randy was nodding in the back when we were talking about it when it was the other agenda item, is the fact that they could have just as easy, instead of actually postponing, canceled this project, and we would have had still nothing to go with. So it is what it is.
So as part of the project, all the lights are going to have to come out of the sidewalks, decorative lights that we own, and we have asked them to put that into their project, because they're not putting something new, they're just replacing what's there, and it will be all new lights, and so they're going to be adding that to the project. We asked them to also add the intersection, to pave through the intersection, because we're going to be out in the middle of the intersection with our sewer work. And then we also asked them to include the sidewalk that we didn't finish right there by Frank's, because that was going to be done when they did the whole intersection, but that's all gone away. They've removed that part of the project. So he jotted down those two things, so hopefully those get included in the project as well.
Which
So
is-
we only have to pay our 10%.
Right, I was going to say, versus paying 100% of the cost.
Exactly, exactly. I don't know if you've noticed, but Randy started cleaning up the Warrumble Mill site yesterday. He'll probably take all week to remove the debris pile and take care of everything that's down there. But it was scheduled to start next week, next Monday, but they were able to come a week early. I did receive a no action assurance letter from DEP on the Warrumble Mill site because of our VRAP letter that we want, the application for the VRAP for that site. So they've gone through everything, and once everything is cleaned up to their satisfaction, then they'll end up having an environmental covenant, which will include the extraction of groundwater at the site is prohibited without the express written permission of the department, and the department must be notified before any excavations can take place on site. So those are the only two environmental covenants that will be on this deed once we get that cleaned up and they issue us the VRAP. So we'll have all the environmental protections at that point. So that's all I have.
Okay, let's circle back.
So order 2020 number
Going back to
55
that item.
would be where we would head back to.
Yep.
Thank you, Twyla.
Fee schedule amendments.
So what we've done here is the notary fee, we've increased from $5 to $8. And then we've added on, we've never had these on the fee schedule, but these are all the agent fees or town fees that we charge for these type of registrations. So we've never had it on the fee schedule, and I just wanted to get it on there as well. So that's not a change, it's just in addition to.
Just like anything else on the fee schedule, it needs
Exactly.
to be approved by us.
Exactly.
I'll make a motion.
I need a second.
I'll second.
I got the first, I got the second. All in favor?
7-0. Order passed.
Next item, Twyla?
Is order 2020-56, the main power options, medium electricity accounts.
I'd make a motion and amend it, if I could.
We'll just make the motion with it.
I'd make a motion that we allow Diane to go for bid for the main power options and for our fuel costs also.
I need a second for that motion.
I'll second that.
The only point that I would make that hasn't already been discussed, for the same reasons on the electricity, the natural gas are at historic lows, and that is what is driving the power options and pricing that you're currently seeing. My recommendation, having gone through this process myself, would be if they were offering 3 years to take 3 years. The intent with that would be to, at least for the next 3 years, when we come to power, that's a static piece that she can budget for in the planning.
Will they go 3 years on the power, on
It'll
even
go
on
up to
electrical?
4, and this will take,
Maximum.
I've already got a contract in place, and this will take over once that contract expires in 2021.
So we're looking at least 3 years on electrical, gas?
Not on the
Okay.
fuel, the fuel's year to year.
Okay, so I mean, I just want to make sure
Right,
that
so the-
could be in that same amendment, but that's just a recommendation, right?
Correct.
Okay. So I'm good with that.
So, if that is the case, any other discussion on that item? Can we entertain a friendly amendment to that be 3 years for the electrical?
Right.
Are you in agreement?
I'm
that in there?
good with that,
I
yes.
think that's what was already was
in there.
presented.
Is that as presented? Thank
That's
you.
right there, yeah.
As presented then. Thank
It
you.
was
Mark.
Just
four-
I
it
had
was 4
added the
years?
fuel to it, so I wasn't
Is
sure
that-
how
is
that
that 3 or
actually
4
came.
years, Diane? I
Did you
know
mean 3 on the, you only meant annual on the fuel?
And that's all you
Right,
can.
that's all they'll
Yeah.
offer, because it's such a small tile.
Thank you. And the second as well, we're good. All in favor?
7-0. Order passed.
Next item, 12.
After appointments, none. Council communications.
Anybody have any?
I do have one. Lisbon Falls Christian Academy, where I went to school, is doing a social studies fair Friday at 5:30, and they're doing it. All the projects are based on the state of Maine in honor of the bicentennial this year. So I just wanted to throw it out there to the public that if they want to come and look at the exhibits, it's at 5:30 on Friday at Lisbon Falls Baptist Church is where the school's located. So.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. Anybody else? I had a couple, if you don't mind. When is the Spirit of America Award? Isn't it typically about
It is.
now?
I've got one department head working on it right now.
Can I ask which department or who?
Mark
we're look-
Stevens is working on it.
Okay. Just throwing it out there, I didn't know we're looking for anybody of that nature. After the success of last year's Moxie, I would recommend the Moxie Committee as potentially consider for that because it was.
They've had it, gotten it before.
Have they? Okay.
I know.
Okay, that's fine. I just want to the listening dot in the corner, and the fact is that that was segueing into my next item. The Moxie Committee met last night. The theme for this year's festival, which will be held July 10 to 12, is Find Your Fire. There's artwork. I'm sorry, it's still in my mailbox.
I have it.
that. Did you get it?
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
have it.
Cassie has a copy of it. It was something that was actually submitted last year for consideration with slight variation associated with that to add the flames associated with it. But now you have the graphic for this year's artwork and the theme. The theme is intended to go with the bicentennial loosely, and what makes Lisbon and Moxie distinctly different. So we're off to a great start. I sent out 100 emails today for the various people on the parades, and all the other committees are actively working on it. So anybody that has any spare time or interest, we would love to have you on board with the Moxie Committee. So the other piece to that, Carlton brought it up last night, the Maine Bicentennial Parade is May 16th. Is Lisbon planning at all on participating on that?
The new fire truck is going to be in it, and the new public works truck, and they've already put their applications in.
Okay.
That's as far as I know.
I
don't
know
if anybody else knows.
Moxie added last night, and they made Carlton's delivering that message for people looking to walk alongside both vehicles. I didn't know if it was a dignitary type of thing, but if any of my peers actually sitting up here actually aren't doing anything on that day, I think it's going to be the cool place to be associated with that.
What day is it again?
May 16th. Anybody that isn't aware and you've lived under a rock, the parade route is going to go through Lewiston and Auburn for the state of Maine's bicentennial parade, and if we're that fortunate to be that close, I think that we should have a presence. So,
So it's going through Auburn and Lewiston.
Yes.
That way.
Yes. Yes. As Carlton was saying, in excess of 100 floats already, and they're capping it at 150. So it is going to be a big deal. So
we're going to get you another golf cart, is what you're saying?
no, I'll walk beside the big orange fire truck.
All right, cool.
As I have seen very little negative associated with that other than, no, we did not pay more for paint. Thank you.
I'm glad it's May 16th because that'll be before we ratify the budget, right?
Right.
Otherwise, we would have to borrow Chief's gear.
Yes.
Skateboards or something.
All right. And anybody else have anything else? Next item, Twyla.
Audience participation for new items?
You got a list of demands, Mr. Ray?
Mr. Ray, we're counting on you.
No? Both abstained. We'll move on.
executive session, Order 2020-57, per 1 MRSA 4056A, Personnel Matters.
I'll make a motion to go into executive session.
And we will not be coming back for anything
Who
on the
seconded
vote, so you guys can close up and
Yes.
head home for the night. Thank you.
We need
All
to make
those
a
in
motion.
favor?
No, I made the
A
motion.
motion and a second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
7-0.
I'm not going to deny, I lost the room about 8:30.
All right, it's 9:30. All right, and I'll just turn the equipment on.
Okay.
Again.
So to answer your question, here it is,
What is what?
whether we have liability.
What is?
A government entity is liable